Start sharing now. Okay, again, if you are online, I'm going to mute you because we have background noise can really interfere. So, okay. I want to welcome everyone to the Spring 2025 Application Training Workshop. I'm going to stand over here. So for those of you in the room, thank you for coming. For those of you online, thank you for being here as well. I hope that we have a good day today. We have a lot of information to go through. Again, for those of you who are in the room, if you need to step outside to use the restroom, they're kind of out to my left, your right. I think the ladies are on one side and the men closer in. So we are going to be doing a hybrid format today. So if you do have to take a call, do step out because noise will pick up on these jabbers. They're very sensitive. And we are going to be taking chat questions from those of you who are online. So as we go through, different points in the presentation, we're going to pause and ask for questions. And this is a great time also for those of you in the room who may have questions as well. All right, let me choose this click. Okay, so like I said, we do have a big day today. We're going to do some introductions first, then Kavita's going to come up and talk about program overviews, and then I'm going to talk about how to complete an application package, and then we'll go through priority rating systems. I believe Kavita and Tripti are handling that. We'll also have a little bit of a discussion about our emerging contaminants. Kavita, I guess we'll be going through that. And then we'll talk about lead service line applications. David Giacchini will be talking about that, and then we'll have a funding expectations primer. Can't remember who is doing that today. So it's a great time to kind of come in and learn about what updates we have, et cetera. And then we're going to do our best to have it all out of here about shortly after 3. So that's kind of our goal for the day. We'll see. We are going to be having one break this morning, and then a lunch, and then if we need a 7th inning stretch right after lunch at some point, we will definitely do that. So those of you online, I sent out an agenda yesterday if you pre-registered. If you did not, I believe it's up on the training page. You can go and grab it. There's also, for those of you who did pre-register for virtual, you should have a copy of that. If you did not, I apologize. We will be posting a copy of this presentation up online after probably at the end of this week. So you'll have that to go through. There's also on our resources page for applications, there's a common application. If you online do not have that pulled up, please go ahead and pull that up. We'll be going through that. Those of you in the room have that. We also have one sheets related to different information about our funding programs, essentially for the programs themselves, the 30,000-foot view. Those are great if you're a local government and you want to take that back to your board, say, here's what's out there this spring. Please note that it will be different in the fall, a little bit different. We'll be offering more programs in the fall. But that's essentially what we have this spring. There's some tips and tricks for filling out applications and getting ready for the narrative. We also, something new that we added for this session and tomorrow's is a copy of the priority rating system score tables. For those of you in the room, that should be a part of your packet as we go through the priority rating system. That will be something good to have in front of you. And everything that you need to apply for the funding programs is in the green box here. So that's the link to go to it. When we put the presentation up online in PDF form, you should be able to click and go right to it. Right, so it's going to be a little bit trickier. I think I'll try to do the introductions of our staff because I'm closer to the microphones than they are. And then what we will also do is just ask for a show of hands, and then we'll ask you all online to kind of put in and see who we have. I think the chats will be popping up in the top right corner of our screen. So I'm Jennifer Haney. I think I know a lot of you just from being with the division for so long. And I am in the what's called the Funding Services Unit at Army of One right now. We're hoping to be able to staff it up this year. But I'm the staff liaison for our State Water Infrastructure Authority. And I am also kind of do a lot of different things, like application training is one of the things I put up, as well as in reports, et cetera. So I do a lot of different tasks across our division. And Susan, I want to do a real quick check to make sure we're recording. I think we should be. Okay. Sorry, I'm so paranoid about not recording this because I know that a lot of y'all go back to this. I'll do other staff introductions over here at the front. We have Kavita Monica Debbie. She's our Water Infrastructure Fund Section Chief. So that we renamed our SRF section to that particular name because we cover so much more than SRFs nowadays. And we have Trupti Desai, who is one of our wastewater project unit supervisors. Then we have Ethan Smith, who is probably our newest employee with the Viable Utilities unit. So he's here to learn as well today. And Dustin Rhodes, who is our old hand, he is back in the Viable Utilities unit now, but has always been very helpful, especially with emerging contaminants. Let me see. Going back here, we have David Giacchini, who is our one of our drinking water project unit supervisors. He'll be talking about our lead service line. And Susan Kubaki over here, and I think that's it. Shadi Ashgath, our director, had to step out for a meeting. He's going to come back in here and listen in as well. So for those of you who are out there, how many of you are representing local governments? If you're on virtual, throw it in the chat. If you're here, raise your hands. All right, thank y'all for being here, for representing local governments. I think this funding is something that's a very valuable tool in your toolbox to use when it comes to water and wastewater infrastructure. How many here are TA providers or consultants and also online? Got a lot of folks. Yeah, we tend to catch a lot here in Raleigh. How many of y'all are brand new? This is your first time, never been through this process. Okay. And got some folks online new to this. All right, I like seeing that. It's going to feel like drinking from a fire hose today. I'm going to talk to y'all for just a few minutes. Please ask questions. I'm sure you've heard the term, it's almost like cliche, but it's true, is if you don't know the question, there's no stupid questions. Chances are, if you don't know the question or what's going on or have a question about it, someone else will. And we do encourage that. It's very helpful for us, especially as we go through and prepare for the next round. All right, and how many are old hands in this? I should see a lot of hands in the room. Come on, y'all, raise your hands. Okay, great. I'm glad y'all are here as well. Those of you who have questions, these folks are great sources of information. I know we have former staff here as well who can help out. So just, well, I'd like for questions to come out because I think it makes our presentations better, our discussion. So I'm going to hand it off to Kavita and let her take it over. And she's going to talk about our programs that we have available this particular funding round. And then I'll come back up front.
Strictly, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'll just stay right in between.
Yeah.
Short enough.
I can't see this tell us to move as we go through this because it is kind of interesting having two screens like right there.
Yeah. Can you all see the screens? Like, you don't need to see me, but
You'll probably have to.
I know, right? Yeah. Good morning and welcome. I'm so glad that you all are here and people online. We have been doing this twice a year. So, and for me, I think it's maybe like fourth or fifth time I'm doing this. And I don't think I get used to it at all. Like every time I'm kind of a little nervous and, things change. So I'm trying to keep up with things. So it's always a, tough time doing this training. Same like you, you have to learn a lot of new things, new program requirements, new funding programs. The same, we are also trying to kind of float in there with you all in the water infrastructure world. So this round, spring 2025, is going to be a little bit of a smaller round. We don't have many programs that we used to offer in our fall rounds. Again, here we receive application or we accept applications like electronic applications. The deadline is Wednesday, April 30th by 5 p.m. So April 30th is the last day that you can submit an application if you are interested in getting some, to be considered for funding this round. This round, mainly we have drinking water SRF and clean water SRF funding programs that are available. We did not have a CDBG funds this round. We did not have asset inventory planning grants like MRF grants, no state grants. So we did not have those kind of viable utility grants, nothing this round. So just the APA SRF funds. SRF is base, as well as we have some IIJA, I would say, like Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. You must be familiar by the name BIL, Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. So we were told that we are not we actually, EPA cannot use that term BIL. So they kind of removed that. And then they were asked to use IIJA, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act instead. So this funding that we got from 22 fiscal year through 26 for SRF base as well as emerging contaminants and lead service line program will be known as IJA funding now onwards. And there is no, you all can call BIL if you want, and we also can call BIL if we want. Only EPA cannot say that. So that is the catch at this point. So again, we have funding program like regular funding for SRF construction, both clean water and drinking water, and also accepting rolling application for lead service line inventory and replacement program and emerging contaminant studies. So emerging contaminant construction can also be applied as our base and the emerging contaminant IJA money. So this is what I said. If you look at the chart, it's only 167 million this round. So it's like a considerably less than the amount of money we used to offer in other rounds. Here, if you look, drinking water SRF is only about 50 million, and a big chunk of that 18 million is principal forgiveness. So what does that mean? If we are not, awarding 36 projects, the chances are the projects that qualify for principal forgiveness will get more than 500,000 principal forgiveness. So this is going to be another round where the projects that qualify for principal forgiveness may get more than 500,000 of that gap. For clean water SRF, we have a little bit more, 90 million. About 30 million out of that is principal forgiveness. And emerging contaminants, that is IJA, emerging contaminant construction is about 10 million. And then study is separate. We have for clean water SRF, we have approximately 2 million for clean water. That's 100% PF. So all the IJA EC funds are 100% PF. There is, I think I would also introduce you to another source of funding for emerging contaminants. That is emerging contaminants for small and disadvantaged communities. That is a new source of funding. Even though we got that money from 22 through 26, we haven't awarded that much of it because the work plan, it doesn't have to go through the, our regular SWIA process, but we have developed a work plan with EPA. So our work plan got recently approved. So based on that, we have like a portion of that money from the SDC funds set aside for emerging contaminants. When we go through the emerging contaminant primer, I'll kind of, give you all a, a little bit of a more description on what is that and how it can be claimed. But other than that, yes, we do have a 15 million approximately for small and disadvantaged communities. These are those drinking water and wastewater construction projects. Our wastewater funding are for construction projects, but we still have the rolling application for emerging contaminant studies and lead service line studies. And the amount is totally like here, approximately 25 million in both. So we do have a considerable amount of lead service line funds. So we encourage you to apply if you're still having to deal with the lead service line issues. So the funding caps are the same. We have a 25 million per round per project for drinking water SRF. And for clean water SRF, that cap is 35 million per project per applicant. Thank you. And for lifetime debt, SRF debt for us, like, and if you have for our applicants, many of our applicants are coming back to us again and again, and then now the project costs are really high, and most people are actually approaching, not most, actually few people are approaching up to that 200 million cap for the entire SRF loan. So any applicant, no applicant can have a SRF loan more than 200 million at any point in time. So if you are you are paying it us back then you can have that, money, whatever is different. So that is that lifetime cap kind of thing, not lifetime cap. It's like how much money you can have like as a debt from us. So it's 200 million right now for both programs. So one utility can have up to 400 million in water and drinking water and clean water. So this is since last application round, we have updated our utility rates for different prioritization and municipal forgiveness eligibilities. We haven't changed the percentiles, but since the utility rates have been changed or increased for all the utilities, we kind of updated it. So at this point, like to get one of the requirements to get 100% principal forgiveness is your combined utility rate should be more than $166. So and you can also have like, if your current combined bill is like between 129 and 148, that also eligible to get 100% PF. But that also depends on several other factors. This is one of the factors to get 100% PF. So we have updated this chart to get the points too. So the percentiles remains the same. So if you have 99 percentile rate, you will get 10 points. And if you get like about 0 to 50 percentile on your rate, like if the rate is between 0 and $89, you will not get any prioritization points for this category. So since last fall, we have kind of redefined. We didn't redefine. We kind of made it a little bit of adjustments for the disadvantaged area. So what we do is right now, the disadvantaged area definition does not include project that benefits the entire LGU or the entire utility service area. So it has to be like a portion of local government unit or the utility service area must be considered separately. So that targeted project area, it will be considered for the disadvantaged area based on the following factors. Question?
I want to clarify. If the entire service, if the entire system is a disadvantaged area, can the project earn project that benefits the whole system, all of which is in a disadvantaged area, can it earn these points? I think you're saying no.
I'm saying no because the points, for C1, the other points, if the whole system is disadvantaged, you will get more points in 4C1 through 4C3. So we are kind of targeting on the areas where there is a wealthy community, but a smaller, disadvantaged area pocket, that this project is directly benefiting those communities. So it should be like less than 50%. That's our guidance requirement. So it's like more, if you want to see more, things, it's in the guidance. So this is particularly to benefit a smaller pocket of the disadvantage of the area. Okay. So the question was, Vince,
even if the entire applicant's area is disadvantaged, if the target benefits that entire area, target a disadvantaged portion thereof, it does not earn the points.
That is correct. Did anybody hear that? Okay. All right, so the study project, I think since last round, we have been focusing on the emerging contaminant study funding. Since with the funding we got from EPA for addressing emerging contaminants is very much, limited rather than the North Carolina's demand. So we are kind of putting forward like about 50% setting aside for study projects. So we want more and more utilities who have the PFAS issue kind of utilize this funding. This is on a rolling basis. So you can come to us like anytime and claim this $500,000 to study the problem. So that's the main, purpose of this funding. This is next cutoff date for the study application is June 2nd. And if you submit an application by June 2nd, you will get, or if your funding application is eligible, you will be awarded on this July SULA SWIA meeting. And we will go through the prioritization requirement for that. So there is a special line item for project purpose, that's 1J, and project benefit, that is 2H, needs to be successfully claimed in order to qualify for these ones. Questions? All right, so again, the lead service line, it's not new. It's, I think by now everybody is kind of familiar with it. For the next, again, for the next round, June 2nd is the application deadline. So you can submit an application anytime between now until June 2nd, and you will still be considered for the July meeting. So that's the lead service line. We still offer 5 million for replacement of non-lead, 3 million per project to find and replace, and 1 million for inventory. So if your project increase this threshold, you can come back to us, in multiple rounds and claim more money if your project requires more than these thresholds. And since we offer funding multiple times, like 4 times a year, there is a good chance that you can kind of stack on this funding if needed. Yes.
Funding already, go for replacement, so it's kind of following right.
The question is if you have an inventory and then you can go into replacement. The answer is yes. But based on like, if you have like an find and replace funding, so that is $3 million. So if you apply for that, then you can just have that inventory side done and then, continue on the replacement. But if you haven't come to us for a replacement fund at all, or you just got the inventory fund, you should come to us, as you find more and more lead, you should complete another application to do the replacement. Yeah, both going on at the same time, or 3 if you want. If you can have one inventory going and one find and replace and one the complete replacement. So you can have all at the same time. David, am I correct? Okay, for the lead service line, they can, one utility, one LGU can have inventory project and find in a replacement project at the same time. Yes, yeah, all right. Thanks. I can repeat the question.
To your total capital funding, we can
Total, yeah. 5 plus 3 plus 1 in a round. But then, again, if you are coming back to us in multiple rounds, there is no cap. There's, you can kind of add on.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Am I going too fast? So you can please stop it. Just, I have, if I get excited, I kind of. All right. So here, what the quiz. Jen's favorite part is this quiz. And water and wastewater planning grants are being offered this round. This is a tricky question. Anybody wants to answer this? No, it's no for AIA MRF type planning grants, but yes for emerging contaminants and lead service line planning grants. So yeah, that's why it's like a kind of tricky question. So this one. Probably Jennifer needs help me with this one. Threshold of utility bill for 5,000 gallons for 100% PF, regardless of combined monthly bill or combined monthly bill and cost of project per connection is A89 and D166. Yeah, B, yeah. A, or I was thinking A and I just skipped B and C. So A89 through D166, and the answer is 166. And that's a lot of money for combined water and sewer bill. So we know we have a problem, right? So this is a straightforward one. When are the applications due? Correct, C, April 30th at 5 p.m. Any more questions?
Are there any questions online? Or I'll let Keith to sit down. I'm here, so, okay, Jen. If you have any, feel free to pop them into the chat and we can address them. I'm going to go ahead and get into the application package completion. This is what you're going to be needing to do to actually submit. It's more than just this application, and those of y'all who are veterans know that. But it's a whole lot more. We're going to talk about the application. You guys submit your priority point sheet and narrative. We have a little one sheet that helps out with that, to kind of give you some ideas about what to put in a narrative. You'll have to submit your affordability calculator, resolutions, financial information form, fund transfer certification form, rate sheets, and guess what? We are not asking for the UEI form anymore. That caused a lot more headache and heartache than was justified for asking for it, so we're not going to ask for it anymore. We pick up that information when you get funded, so just be aware of that. And we're going to be going through each of these pieces here as I go through, and then priority rating systems, Troop DAV, we'll be talking about them. And one of the things I neglected to mention is, for those of you in the room, there is a list of acronyms out there you may encounter during our funding process. Feel free to set that aside and look at it as we go through. I think it's also up online under the training materials. For those of you who are online, if you want to pull it down during the break, that would be great. All right, application packages. If you submitted an application for funding and it did not get funded last fall, and SLEA made their decisions in February, you can go ahead and just leave it be and let sleeping dogs lie and don't worry about it. And we will, if it's new last round, we will automatically reconsider it this round. We are required by statute to do so. If you are thinking about going back and revising your application, that's great. A lot of y'all come in and talk with us, you meet with us, and you say, how can I improve my application? And then you go and do it. Just ask that you submit it as a brand new application. One of the questions that always comes up too is, say I had a brand new application last round that didn't get funded. I'm revising it, resubmitting it. Do I need a new resolution? The answer is no. Resolutions can be used for one more cycle. If they are more than a year old, then please make sure they're redone. That makes sense for y'all in the room and online. I want to make sure we're good on that, because that question is a great question. It always comes up. You know, it's one of people to be aware of it. We do, can't see because I'm walking straight up there. We also look at each application as standalone. And what I mean by that is, if you submit 5 applications for one local government, we're not going to go to application A to find something that was missing in application B. It takes a lot of time. It's nerve-wracking for us. We view each one as standalone. So just be sure that as you're putting your applications together, you develop a QA/QC checklist that will help out. Like, put on there more than just the pieces you need, like signatures here, still there, etc. Okay, final check tips. Again, QA/QC checklist are wonderful for this. There is a little one on the application itself. We'll talk about that. But make sure that you have all of your signatures. We do require signatures on a lot of forms, like the financial information form, the application, etc. So make sure that you have all of your signatures together. Also, please make sure you have all of your forms. We have a lot that are required. We'll be talking about those later. Some that we need as well, but if you don't submit it for some reason, it's not being the world. It may knock you out of principal forgiveness, but you'll still be considered complete. And then your narratives and score sheets. And Truthing and Convenience will be going through those in detail after I finish. So those are the items that we need to make sure that you have complete. All right, any questions before I move on? Any questions online? Okay. All right, applications. So for those of you who are online, if you have your file, go ahead and open it. If you're in the room, it's the one that has a bunch of directions in the front. We get that page 1. Looks like this. So go ahead and pull that out, because I'm going to be walking through each section. This is the one that that is revised. It has revised on February 25. If you're a veteran in this and you have application materials going back 5 years, when you get back to your office, take a few minutes to delete them off. Start fresh, because we have things like 1 or 2 times at least we have someone who uses our old applications. Please use the most recent ones in general, but for this round, This is for our construction programs. We have a separate one for our rolling applications for lead service lines and emergency candidate study. Okay, David's going to touch on that this afternoon. We use one application because what it enables us to do is provide what we call a best funding fit. So in other words, if we can, for this round, provide you with 100% principal forgiveness to qualify for accountability, we will do our best to provide for you. And then we go down to a combination of principal forgiveness and loans, all the way down to 100% loan. And this application is what enables us to be able to do that. Make sure that you have all sections completed. And also, please read the instructions. We put the instructions on the front for a reason. Please take a moment to read through them. They do change slightly every round as we discover things that we need to fix, like essentially things that might have been a little bit worse to try to crystallize it. So please take the time to read through them. It's 7 pages. I think it's pretty easy reading. Y'all might differ on opinion, but I think it's pretty easy reading. But it's really important to read the instructions as you go through this. All right. This is page 1 of the application. Go ahead and have that in front of you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show an image of the sections/pages we're talking about. And I just noticed it's not the best resolution on the screen, but that's okay. You have it in front of you if you're in the room. I hope if you're online, it's better resolution. And then what I'm going to do is talk about each section. If you see anything that is in red italics, this is critical. Please go ahead and make sure that you have that information in there. If anything in red italics is not present, it's not a complete application, and we have to toss it out in the round. Funding amount requested. Can't fund you if we don't know what you're asking for. So please make sure that you can fill this out. I know it sounds basic, but I do remember the bad old days of ARPA. Years ago, we had some people who they were probably doing 20 applications and someone let that out. Please make sure it's in there. Please make sure it matches what's in your budget. Total project cost we need, it has to at least be equal to and greater than, that's fine. We use it for our principal forgiveness calculation. It's not the end of the world if it's left out for some reason, but it will disqualify you from principal forgiveness. So please put that in there. And I'm going to camp on, if you go toward the bottom of the page, you'll see something that says acceptance of funding offer. I'm going to go through this and just sit on it for a few minutes because this is really important. This is how we figure out how much loan you can actually take on if you will. Or how much grant you really need to take the project for. It's another way to think about it. So the reason why this is so important is once we have that everything in, April 30th passes, we are not going to come asking questions. This is our way of knowing the answer, so we don't have to do that because we can't. So say, for instance, you have a very simple $1 million project. We're lining out our funding recommendations, we scored everything, we ranked everything, we're going down the list. And you said, okay, I have to have $1 million to make this project move forward. But we're going down the list, and we see that we only have $800,000 left to fix it. So a few people have done that in the past, and they call all upset and like, this is what you told us to take, and kind of sit. So this is a really good time to talk with your finance officers, your clients, your governing boards, your utility directors. Make sure how much money you can actually need as principal forgiveness. So you go back and have a conversation with them, and they say, yeah, you know, it's great to have $1 million principal forgiveness, but we just need $750,000 to make this go. So we're going back down to that fictional scenario, lining out funding recommendations. We get down, and we have $800,000 left. If we need to come to $750,000, we'll be able to. And the question always comes up, hey, I'm qualified for 750. And it's like, excuse me, like I can take on 100% loan, but I'm qualified for 750. Does that mean that I'm not going to get that? No, we have the principal forgiveness available. We will provide it to you. I just want to make sure that this is a conversation that sometimes we have to get questions on. I just want to make sure we're clear. Folks online, if you can give me a yeah, okay, you're clear on this, that'd be great. Y'all go in the room. Yes, no questions?
There is one.
Okay, sure.
If a project that will roll over from the fall, will be updated application be required?
If a project rolls over from the fall, will an updated application be required? Okay, if your application was not funded in the fall, you have two options. You can just leave it as is. If it was a brand new application last round, we will automatically reconsider it. That's a statutory requirement. And if you want to revise it, you're more than welcome to. When you submit it, you can just say, hey, this supersedes the previous application, and we'll get rid of the old application and take your new. Want to make sure that's good online for everyone. Okay. Good question. Keep them coming. Okay, so if we're clear on this, I'll go ahead and move on. I'll go up a little bit, see funds for existing SWIA funded project. So SWIA is going to renew the statewide infrastructure authority as the folks who actually make the funding awards. We make the recommendations, they make the award. We put this in here. This is brand new on this application. Essentially, like you have a project that SWIA funded, say, 2 years ago, and you're getting into the bids, you're getting into the construction, and they're like, we need more money. This is where you tell us, okay, you funded this 2 years ago, here's the project number, and we will only fund the project in terms of the difference. We will not do a refinance. In hopes of better reimbursement. Yes, ma'am.
So if we have a project that needs more funds, will we also add something to that project? Is that gap, does this fall under that sort of gap funding or?
That's a good question. So the question was, if you haven't, let me see if I got this right. If you haven't previously funded projects, you're adding more to the scope and you need more money from that previous one. I think it would. I would suggest calling us up, sitting down with one of our supervisors.
Yeah, because we're likely need more money both for the original scope
Yep.
and for the addition.
Yep. Yes, sir.
If you got funds for apartments, like providing replacement,
Uh-huh.
and then it turns out because of recent increase in the number of development in the area,
Yep.
it has to turn into a
Like you're expanding.
yes, that's like for like to an expansion project.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to rephrase it and let Kavita answer this one, because this is more in her shop than mine. If you have a like for like, things are changing on the ground in your area, your like for like is starting to change to an expansion. What do you do? So Kavita, I'll let you answer
Okay.
that one.
Yeah, we come across with this, type of situations actually more recently. So what we do is we have to go back and rescore your application because you got your funding based on the replacement we have. So that was the points are higher in that type, when you submitted the application. So we will go back and rescore your application considering the fact that you are an expansion project, and then we will get the new project score. We will go back to the SWIA award at that time, whenever it was 2022, 2023, we will get that spreadsheet and then see if you would have been, funded with this amount of priority points. So if you have still got funded with this reduced points, then we would say, okay, you can add this, or change the project to an expansion or a different type of project and add scope. That's fine. But if not, then your entire project has a risk of falling out of altogether. So that's how it works.
If y'all encounter any of these situations, my best advice is to come to me with a set of meetings, to the supervisors, to go through that. Because I don't want to steer you wrong. I'd rather go as you're getting close to application time. Go ahead and meet with someone.
This scenario where it can afford fund it. We included some principal forgiveness. Second, you've got the funds, everything.
That is correct. No, you cannot apply for more principal forgiveness. You have to give up whatever you had and then try your luck again if you think you would have got more principal forgiveness this time. So you cannot just keep on, blocking the funds and then, try for better terms and slow down the project. We cannot do that anymore because of the timely and expeditious use of funds by EPA. So that's a change we will talk about later too. So you cannot do that, and we are discouraging that.
The follow-up.
Yeah.
You applied for a new application.
No, that's why you have to like really decline it, right? So yes, you are like, so if you are completely like declining your funds to be considered for this new round. So if you are, yes. The question was if you have already funded a project and then you come back to us and we apply for better terms, but if you didn't get qualified this round, you have already kind of risked your previous funding by, now when you get a new application in and you have to decline the old application to be considered. Otherwise, if you haven't declined, we will not consider it. We'll just skip over. We will put that in the SWIA sheet, but we'll just skip over your project. Yes. Yes, if the project cost is increased, for example, you applied to us for like 20 million and then you got like 20 million award, but then now the project cost is increased to 30 million with the same scope, 30 million. So you will be considered for that extra $10 million. So you will keep your original award and the extra 10 million plus whatever principal forgiveness you can get from this round, you can add to that. That is how it works.
And I think Kavita will be talking about more of the Thailand expeditions. A lot of it's resulting from the change in political climate up in DC, but we'll talk about that later today, so stick around.
Any more questions? I know this is a little bit of a. Yes. That is correct. If you're an earmark and even if you have like an ARPA, like it's already yours, and 2023, 134 earmark, anything like, this is only for the SWIA awarded project. So if you have an earmark, of course, you can keep that money and apply.
Good question.
Yes. So it's an earmark and it's funding down. You can sign up money. Yeah, so all the conditions, if you are adding more money, more SRF money to an earmark project, all the SRF conditions will apply to the entire project. So that is kind of Davis Bacon, Baba, AAS, whatever.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. All right. So section 2 through 5 looks like this. And essentially this is for your water and sewer connections and your bills for 5,000 gallons. So if you have a sewer project, give us your residential and non-residential sewer connections only. Water, same thing, but we do need both bills for 5,000 gallons. So please do be aware of that because we use that in our calculations for principal forgiveness eligibility plus for points later, which we'll talk about. Section 3 is your authorized representative. We do need to know who this person is. Generally, it's the top elected or top administrative official, but we can have other persons who are in there. You can see some of the ones: finance director, utility director, council member. It has to be someone who's in a position of responsibility. So in other words, probably your receptionist in town hall is not a good idea for an authorized rep because this person is going to be signing off on loan offers, et cetera, a lot of important stuff that they take responsibility for. And that person, if it's different from your top elected or admin official, they have to be named in the resolution, like John Jones, utility director. Sections 4 and 5 should not be italicized red, but that's more of your contact information for your consultant, whoever's preparing the application. And if your engineer is different from your consultant, that's essentially contact information we use to make sure we get correspondence to you. All right, section 6 and 7. This is what it looks like. It's your project description and your additional information for consideration. Section 6, we just want a broad brush of what the project is. What our reviewers do is they'll take that project description, they'll take the budget, and they'll make sure that the high points are hit and matched so that you're not applying for one project here but budgeting for another one. That's kind of how we do that check. There's a lot of good information in the instructions about how to do this. If you are working, especially like if you're working on EC projects and you're adding, like you're going out and taking systems off well, so maybe the PFAS contaminated, tell us the number of connections you're adding. We do use this information for the authority. We actually do a project cost per connection for them. And believe me when I say we get it perfect. They really do have questions about this, and that's how we provide them the information. If you're directly benefiting a disadvantaged area, tell us. And then you'll be providing the supporting documentation for C4. And then if you've done an AIA or an MRF and this project you're applying for construction is a benefit of that, tell us. The authority started these programs nearly 10 years ago, and we're starting to see a lot of fruit come out. And they want to know, hey, are these AIAs and MRFs producing projects that we're now funding in terms of construction? So additional information, how many of y'all have been working with the Helene counties, especially? The Helene areas, yeah, some of you online, I know we're impacted by Helene. And you may find that something about what your project is not the priority rating system. This is something I emphasized in Hickory last week. This is a really good section to use to tell the authority why this project is an important project. Unfortunately, we cannot use this for the drinking water state revolving fund award. So any kind of water projects we're awarding in spring, we can't use this. But we can use it, or the authority can use it to bypass, like the wastewater project funded by the Clean Water SRF. The DWSRF, by federal law, we have to go down priority. But wastewater, they can elevate if they want to, they can bypass other projects. This is the information that they use. A few tips about this, it's pretty, let's see, it's not that big of a block. Pull it up. It's right there at the bottom of the page. Please don't copy and paste the project description in here. We've seen that in the past. We've seen why my project should be funded like pieces, almost like we wrote at GTI. We've seen people expand that block to be a page and a half. Don't do that. Don't use 4.com if you can't read it. So please just tell us very succinctly what, this is not the any priority rating system because we think it's a priority project, et cetera.
For project specifically related, how will the division be calling out that that's fully related on the recommendation? Like, we just point that out to Sophia somehow?
So the question was, how do we pull out related projects? I think what we're going to do is, like, if you check the additional information box, they have access to all of those information, or all of the applications via Leisure Beach. And so they can go in and read that, and I think they do. That's something that if they have questions, you can also.
Yeah, Christine, for Helene related, we have the state loans, right? And also we have a lot of money coming from the SRF part for the Helene and Milton, I think. So it's about 2.8 billion for the affected, I think, 5 states. And we, like North Carolina and Florida, is going to get a big chunk. So stay tuned. There is a big, funding coming for that.
Okay, someone here have their picture on.
It's coming, yeah.
So follow-up question, will that be part of this funding round or would that be separate?
That would be separate. It needs a different IUP. It needs like all different things. So it will be like, when we know that 2.8 billion is announced for national level, but they haven't given us our allocation yet. So as soon as we know that number, we have to prepare an IUP, public comment period, everything. And we'll be like, making that available as a separate round or probably part of the fall, next fall round. We don't know how soon we can get that done, but that is coming. That's going to be a bigger for Helene, all Helene related projects.
So stay tuned.
All right, follow-up question, you may not know the answer to this yet, but will that be primarily like both funds or with grants or?
Primarily loan, and then we can have a bigger chunk of PF too. So I think they are saying probably like 30% PF, and we have the ability to get like up to 100%. So they are not going to limit what PF is. So we have to come up with like an idea about how to get that PF allocated. And then on top of that, there is another part of money, 1442B and 504B for operation maintenance type of things, and, emergency repair type of things. So that's a separate part. That's grant money. That is also going to be part of this big chunk of SRF.
Yep. We digressed a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. Good information, lots of more funding coming down. So that's a good question, but just to be aware that section 7, we unfortunately with the drinking water it's out of line for us. We can't use that. I would consider that we're down off doing that. So. All right, section 8, project budgets. This is what it looks like. We have made a change. We've taken out 2 other columns and just put in the funding request. That's all we need to know. But please make sure you put the seal. And also there's instructions for, we'll talk about this in priority rating systems. There are some line items with the planning that we need to see differentiation in the budget stage for old infrastructure, disadvantaged areas. So be aware of those. It's in the guidance. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. Please put your BDE seal in here with your signature and date on it. And doing this electronically, we are now. Don't just drop your seal on the PDF file. In other words, it's floating on there, and that means you can move it around. Please don't do that because Laserfish strips that out. And we may not know it, our reviewers will see it, they're like, where's the seal? This is an incomplete item, it's not there. Please either just hard wet seal it, scan it, or just from the viewing, drop your seal on the Word document, save it as PDF, make sure you don't move it around. If you move it around, it's floating, then it's not good. If you see, can you hear? Am I moving too far away? Okay, closer. Okay. I'm trying not to block screens, and the way they have the screen set up in this room, I think I'll do what Kavita did, stand in the middle. So anyway, just make sure that you affix that seal with signature. DocuSign, if you have that, is a wonderful tool to use for this. All right, certificate, yes, ma'am.
All right. Have you had any issues with like DocuSign signatures getting stripped out? Litigation?
Have we had any issues with DocuSign signatures getting stripped out? I have not seen it. The one I did see was a file got corrupted. And I can't remember, we had to call it incomplete, unfortunately, because they could not produce the file with the signature. I think it was on a resolution. Yes, sir.
No, I've discovered when I used to seal,
Uh-huh.
it turned, it applied to the PDF.
Yep.
But when I was going over my application,
Yep.
I got to the seal and it was not there.
Okay.
So what I found was once you do create a PDF with a doc seal on it.
Yep.
It's probably a good idea to print that PDF and that will bring it into the.
Yeah, good point. So Gary was talking about DocuSeal, and I've not used DocuSeal, so I'm not a PE, but apparently it can vanish, like, especially if you like save as PDF versus printing.
Stormwater quality projects.
Okay. Someone online, mute yourself, please. Thank you. But it's a really good suggestion, and I agree, to print to PDF, and that should embed it in there. But, yep. Kim, I saw your hand go up. Nope. Okay. All right. Anyone else? This has not been a really big issue since we first started using Laserfish. We became aware of it in 22 in our first round, so we worked very hard to address that. All right, so let me see. Talked about budget certifications. Make sure your authorized representative initials all of the certification boxes. I think there's 10 or 11. If it's NA, NA is fine. Please don't leave any of them blank. Make sure they're all initialed. Signatures. So we have to have the authorized representative. Again, I'm listing those there. Do the signing. We had an issue where someone who was alternative signed for it. We've got to have the authorized rep sign.
I got loud enough.
Okay, if we can mute whoever is online. Anyway, just be aware of that and time it so that when you're getting those signatures, the authorized representative is actually present and can do that. Again, we can take original signatures. We have DocuSign that's out there. Be aware of the same issues, I'm sure. Don't just drop it on the top of the PDF and let it float around. So that way, if worst comes to worst, do a wet signature and scan it. Haven't had a really big problem with that lately, but just want you to be aware of that. Any questions online or in the room about the application form itself? Yes, sir, Vince.
Is there any significance? I don't think there is. To the 7 blank lines in section 2.
Section 2, any significance? No. So the question was, is there any significance to those lines? No, there's not. Those are just lines that did not get taken out for the room. We will correct that in the fall.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Any online? Okay, everyone can hear me okay online? I'm usually a very loud person, that's why I was kind of surprised. All right, yeah, I was drum major in high school, so I learned to throw my voice, if you would. All right, financial information form, we made one very teeny tiny change, and that's to specify that either the finance officer or authorized representative can sign off on it. It looks like this. We do not have that in our packets in the room. These are forms that we are like, let's just leave them online. Fund transfer certification form looks like this. You'll see 3 boxes. I'll go back and talk about each of these in just a second. So financial information form, we ask for 3 years of data. For expenditures, please use absolute values. Please remember any transfers you have, and please don't play with the form. I think one time we had someone who took creative license with our fund financial information form. Please don't do that. One of the things we do say is you don't have to have it to be complete, but if you leave it out for some reason, it's going to impact points like your operating ratio point. So do be aware of that. Fund transfer certification. I am going to go back to this form really quick because we have had issues with it. If you, one of the things is you have to go back to 2014 for this. There is a definition, and when you pull up the form online, I think you can click over to the statute about it, but you have to have only allowable transfers. An allowable transfer is like if you're transferring from your enterprise fund to your general fund for rent in City Hall or something. That's allowable. What's not allowable is if you're transferring from your enterprise fund to your general fund to pay for a police car. What I think the legislature was trying to get out over 10 years ago was using the enterprise fund for water sewer. They really want you to do that. Do be aware of something called payment in lieu of taxes pilot. Some are allowable, some are not. I am not a finance person. Please contact the local government commission if you have questions. They can help out on that. You will see 3 boxes here in the room. You'll see it right there. Please check only one. Every round, someone gets in a hurry. Either they check all 3 or they check none. And then we have to throw the application out. And I hate throwing applications out because someone got in a hurry. Put this on your QA/QC checklist. Check one of the 3, please. And make sure your finance officer or authorized rep signs off on it. And that will be part of your package that goes in. We must have this form. All right, whatever that information. Resolutions, we have a template available. I know some of y'all who are your clients may have it, or if you're local government, you may have a template you already use. That's all well and good. Please make sure that you complete your resolution more in time. Again, that's something to think about planning wise. Because it is due at the application time, and list your project in the first whereas clause. Now, questions have come up in the past, like I'm vetting, say, 3 projects A through C. I'm a consultant, I'm vetting them with my client. Not sure what they're going to go with in the end. So they may go with project A or they may go with project C. So how do we do this? Well, my recommendation has always been list projects A through C in your resolution, and that way, if your meeting's right before submittal deadline, you're covered. So if they only go with project A, you're covered. If they only go with project C, you're covered. Also, if you're submitting multiple applications, same thing. It's better to do that than to do 3 individual applications and get flustered at the end and submit the wrong resolution, because we'll have to toss a project for that because of the standalone concept. Any questions on that? Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Okay, does this have to be adopted within the last year? Yes. Yeah. preferably closer to application time, but I know because some people are great planners and they come ahead and they're like, okay, I know what I want to submit 4 months ahead of deadline, that's fine, but within the past week. Yeah. Great question. Any other questions in the room or online? Okay, I'm not seeing them pop up. Okay, more tips. There's a certification by the recording officer required for the resolution. Make sure that the template we have in online is used, the date, the recording officer title and signature should be in there. We can use attestations, but please make sure that the resolutions and attestations both contain that seal and signature of the clerk of the board. And a trick too is make sure your resolution date is before or the day of the resolution, recording officer's date. Please, whatever you do, don't put the recording officer's date before the date of the resolution, if that makes any sense. Because then we're like, did this really, what happened? We do look at that. And we had, unfortunately, there was one application that we had to call incomplete because the dates were messed up. Essentially, the resolution happens after it happens, the recording officer does his or her thing. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So we noticed this in the last funding round,
Uh-huh.
that the signature of the authorized rep is no longer, or the liaison officer is no longer on template resolution.
Correct.
That meeting that made us switch last funding round, so we did
We're
it
good.
anyways.
Yeah.
But, so that's no longer required if you have the clerk's certification.
For these funding rounds. Now, when we get back into CDBGI in the fall, we have to have a signature.
Okay,
That's-
so for the ask rep funding,
Yeah.
the signature of the authorized rep.
Right. Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. I know Colleen, when she was with us, we had a big discussion about that. All right, submittal electronics, and we're already over time, but I'm going to just say that we submit here on this web link. This will be in the presentation. We'll put the presentation up online. All you have to do is click the link. And I think it's also on our website, so just be aware of that. And then I have behind these, I have some slides that if y'all want me to show you how to submit, I can. Anyone not comfortable with that? Okay. If not, what we can do is, if you are uncomfortable submitting a project, this is your first time, those of you online. Okay, those of you online, if anyone says, I want to see how you do a Laserpiece submittal form, put it in the chat right now. A, it shows you're paying attention. But B, it also lets me know that we need to do this. But you're welcome to call me up and say, hey, can we do a quick Teams meeting, WebEx meeting, and we can walk me through how to do it. I'll be glad to do that. I've done that a few times in the past. But it's a really cool form to use. The one very small change that we made, besides just making adjustments for this round, is the look and feel has changed from, I'll go through this, from this to a little bit cleaner look. That's the only big change I would say. I think it's cleaner. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. So I think we're good to go. Anyone want to see it? Okay. Well, we are over time. It's 11:07. What I want to do is take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at 17 after, jump right into the priority rating system. We may not get through all of it before lunch, but we'll get pretty close and finish up right after lunch. So we'll see you back at 11:18. Just turn over 11. See you in 10 minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get back started. Let me crank this on the top of the screen, and I'm going to hand it off to Kavita, I believe. Okay, so those of y'all who are online, if you have questions about the submittal form, this is the way it looks if you haven't seen it before. And like I said, I'll be glad to get up with anyone who needs to do this for the first time and work to submit it. We can always do it via Teams or WebEx or something. All right, I want to put it over to Kavita, I believe. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through hopefully at least the first two sections, the priority rating system. We'll do a time check closer to 12:15, and then we will go from there. So Kavita, I hand it off the quicker.
Find my spot here. Yep, okay. So I think we kind of touched on this emerging contaminants funding over. It's almost like, I know we have gone through half of the funds already. So the emerging contaminant funds came to us through like 22 fiscal year through 26. So half of this are already awarded, but we do still have some left. So North Carolina's Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding program is limited to projects addressing PFAS. So when the rule came in, we could pick and choose emerging contaminants, other emerging contaminants as well. But since North Carolina has a bigger PFAS issue, we limited our emerging contaminants award strictly for PFAS. And to get this funds, a local government unit or the applicant must have documented PFAS contaminants in the drinking water or wastewater exceeding MCL levels or the levels that is specified in the PRS guidance, priority rating system guidance. So what does that mean? Only a few PFAS components contaminants have a MCL or a hazardous HI, hazard index, but if you have other PFAS compounds that is about 10 ppt, we can, that project can be eligible to get this fund. So that's not prioritized as high as the PFAS compounds that with an MCL and HI, but it's still, if any PFAS compounds about 10 ppt will have the ability to apply for these funds. Any questions? So this is how much money we have for the spring 2025. And for drinking water, we have about $10 million. Since it's a $5 million cap, it's about 2 projects, 100% PF. So it's like a $5 million grant. And for wastewater, we have approximately $2 million in principal forgiveness, and there is no cap for the wastewater funding because the available funding is so less. And the same thing, you don't need to apply separately. The same common application that Jen was talking about, you can use that application to apply for the construction portion of the emerging contaminants. And for the study, I think we will go over that. It's a separate rolling application. So if it's a construction project for emerging contaminant, you can use the same common application. And the priority rating system is also updated to include emerging contaminant line items. So in the second row, you will have an EC there. So if there is an EC on the side, on the left side of your line item, that means that that item is eligible to receive an EC. So if you have a project, a construction project that can get EC award as well as the SRF base award, you can fill out this application and do, claim all the points that is that's eligible for that project. We will add up the EC points to give you an EC score, and then we will add up the rest of the projects, the rest of the scores to give you a base score. So the base score will be used to compare with the other projects to get your SRF award, and the EC point will be used to compare with other EC projects to give you the EC award. That's how this works. So you don't need to do a separate priority rating system or application if your project addresses PFAS. Question on that? So this is, I also touched this a little bit in the morning. So this is the Emerging Contaminants for Small and Disadvantaged Communities grant. This is not an SRF money. This is a grant fund that is coming from EPA. So we, in our division, DWI, we do not have much experience, administering EPA grants. So this is going to be slightly different with all the EPA grant requirements. So we did receive this funds from 22 fiscal year to 26, and only a portion, about 50% of the money we are setting aside to supplement our SRF program for the eligible EC applicants here. So small is defined as the population less than 10,000 individuals, and disadvantaged is the same definition as we have in our base program. So basically, if your project is eligible to receive any PF, principal forgiveness, based on our affordability calculator, you are kind of considered as disadvantaged. So that if your population is less, and also if you can get any amount of principal forgiveness, qualified for any amount of principal forgiveness based on our affordability calculator, that applicant can be an eligible applicant to receive small and disadvantaged community grant. So there is another way if your applicant is bigger or larger in size, but the project is to connect or address some PFAS issues in a small disadvantaged area. So for example, a bigger utility is trying to extend some water lines to a PFAS contaminated area. That project can be eligible if you successfully claim 4C4 points in the affordability. That is, you are benefiting that area. So if you successfully claim and show that those wells have PFAS issues, even if your utility is bigger, you should be able to get the, it should be able to be eligible to receive this ECSDC funds. Yes.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, so if your system has more than 10,000 people, but the area being served, you just have to document what the population is in that area to be eligible.
That is correct. Yeah, that area should be very small. So, and that should be contaminated with PFAS as well. And the documentation requirement is in the guidance.
Thank you.
So the documentation and eligibility criteria for projects are the same as the IJA AC program. And DEQ, I already told this one, DEQ is using a portion of the ECSDC funds to supplement SRF EC program. That's why we are not taking a separate application to give you all these funds. So we will go through our already received applications and see who is eligible. After the 3 hours have been made, we will go through the list again and who didn't get funds from EC and see if anybody is eligible to receive ECSDC, and then we will call them up separately and offer these funds, it's not through SUIA. It would be like we will contact you directly to give you this fund. So that's how it works. Any questions? I know it's like not the, typical. Backup, yeah, that is correct. If your project didn't receive EC funds and if they are qualified to receive ECSDC, then you will be considered for ECSDC. So at this point, we have about 15 million available for construction project, and the cap is the same, 5 million per cap and per applicant. 5 million per project and cap per applicant is 10 million. So that's a new thing. We have put that in our work plan this round because some of the utilities are coming and claiming this fund in smaller chunks because if you have PFAS issue in different areas, one utility can put in 10 application, 3 million, 3 million, 3 million, and then take all these funds. We have this limited funds, take all these funds for that one utility if that utility have PFAS issue. So to stretch this money a little bit more, we are limiting that if your utility, how big or small, you can only get a $10 million as a cap from this entire program, 22 to 26 fiscal years. So that's how we would, we are planning to kind of stretch this money for some more people. So this is the project rating system that I already showed you with the EC on it. So EC studies, from from the ECSDC, it is like planning and construction together. We are not setting aside not setting anything aside for a study project because we do have considerable amount of study funds already set aside from the IJA EC, and we still have about 7.2 million in drinking water and 1.1 million in wastewater study projects. So here for the next round from the 2025 and 26 cap grant, we also have we have 10 million in drinking water and 2 million in wastewater study money set aside. So at this point, we are funding all of the study applications that we are getting for emerging contaminant programs. So if you haven't come to us for emerging contaminant, study funds, this is the best time to come and get those funds. Funding cap is 500,000. Again, if your project is more, cost more than 500,000, you can come in for the subsequent round and claim the additional 500,000 for the project. How much ever it takes for you to do a pilot and, design and up to the construction. So that you can claim in 500,000 chunks for multiple rounds. So the next cutoff date is June 2nd, 2025 for the study projects. The same, yes. It can qualify for both. So the question is the complete design of a PFAS construction project qualify under the study or construction? The answer is both. If you have the construction funds, you can use for the study, not study that the preliminary engineering, permitting, planning, up to the construction phase. And also, if you are coming to us for a study project, you can do, the entire thing, alternative analysis through pilot program, bed scale test, whatever you need. Plus, if you find an alternative to how to do it, you can take it up to the design and permitting using that fund. So this is kind of a pre-construction planning grant type of thing. So you can cover up to that design. Good question. Thank you. So the same thing, the study project also uses the similar priority rating system, but it is a little, it's a little bit more compact. It does only include EC items. And to get EC study, you should be eligible to receive 1J3. That is a study category in project purpose. So 1J3, to get 1J3, you have to have 2H3 or 2H4. That is project benefit. You have to document you have a PFAS issue, and this project will resolve the PFAS issue and meet the proposed NC, not proposed anymore, meet the upcoming NCR issues. See, as I said, there is a brand new, there is a separate application for the EC study and lead service line. This is called the rolling application that you will be using if you are applying for the study projects or the lead service line project year round. So this is that application here. Here, a question. When a system has issues with PFAS in their system, can they receive funding for system construction to address the contamination in addition to the money to fund a study grant if they submit applications for it? Yes, the answer is yes. So if you have a project, a construction project, you can submit two applications. One to claim just the engineering portion and the study portion, and the one for the entire project or just the construction portion. So then you can kind of get money just because we have more money for the study. Most likely you will get at least 500,000 to start the project, and then the other one, the construction, is a little bit more competitive. So you might, you might be considered, but there is a possibility that you can get 5 million from the construction and 500,000 from the study. So you can kind of put together a 5.5 million in grant to do the PFAS. So that's how it works. Any questions? If not, we will go through the project priority rating system, and Tripti will help me with this, and I kind of come in as needed.
Okay, so priority rating system. So Jennifer talked about the application form and supporting documents like financial information form, resolution, then water and sewer rates, rate sheet and all. In addition to this, we need this priority rating system scorecard, and that scorecard is used to prioritize projects. And depending on the points that the application received, the funding decision will be taken. Staff recommends projects to fund in priority order, and funding amount and funding terms are determined based on the priority points. When you have the scorecard, please make sure that you use the right scorecard. If you have a drinking water project, use the scorecard for that drinking water projects, and for wastewater projects, we have a separate scorecard. When you are claiming points, try to claim as many points as you think you can get, because when we start reviewing the application, sometimes we determine that, okay, this application is not eligible to receive these points, but they can receive points in another line item. So if you think that your application can claim points in two project purposes, just go ahead and score accordingly. Then we have this priority points cap. For example, for category 1, we have 25 points. If you try to claim 2 or 3 project purposes, you'll still get the maximum cap is 25. You will not get more than that. When you have the scorecard, and we have our website has priority rating systems guidance. We have that guidance for if you are applying for a construction project, you need to use the guidance for the construction project. And every time you are applying for a project, please go through our website's guidance. If you have the guidance from the previous round, sometimes we make changes, so try to use the latest application, latest guidance, so that you don't miss anything that we have changed. And when you have this priority rating system scorecard, you need to provide narratives for that, and our guidance has the documentation for that, what all things you need to include. So you need to follow our guidance completely, and when we are reviewing this application, we will consider the information that is provided with the application. So for example, we talked about the project, and we know that this project has some NOVs, but if you don't include those NOVs with your application, we will not consider those points. As I said earlier, please read the guidance carefully. And the guidance has information on what all documentation is required, under what circumstances you can claim those points. Sometimes they have a list of documents that is required to claim those points. Sometimes we need one document, sometimes we need all documents. So please make sure that you read the guidance completely and follow it. Roll downs. In certain situations, when we start reviewing the application, you claim points in one category, and if we think that your documentation is not sufficient and you cannot get points in that category, we will consider another category. These are some examples. If you try to claim points for failed infrastructure in category 1B points, and if your documentation is not enough, or the description is such that we think that it's a rehab and replacement project, so we will consider 1C points. Same thing when we are reviewing the application and we think that it's not a rehab and replacement project, but it's an expansion project. Instead of 1C and 1C1 points, we will give 1D and 1D 1 point. Similarly, there are some categories with 2N and 3A. We also consider roll downs. And if you have any confusion or if you have any question, just call us and we will help you to determine what are points you can claim. Now, the priority rating system, that's a table. I guess you have that table in your packet. This is that table. You have two different tables for drinking water and wastewater product. So this table has four different categories. First one is project purpose. Next, category 2 is project benefits, then system management and affordability. And this presentation will not cover each and every category or each and every line item under those categories. We'll just talk about some obvious problem areas and where when we review this application, where people make mistake and where we need to provide more clarification. So the first category is project purpose, and there are 25 maximum. You can claim maximum 25 points. So when you have the each project should have a purpose, and that entire project should the entire project must support that purpose. As I said, if we think that the documentation is not sufficient, we will award this project purpose points in some other category. Sometimes there is a project purpose but the documentation or the narrative is such that we cannot award any points in category 1. The project is still eligible for funding, but they will not receive any principal forgiveness. So first line item is for that is 1A, and that is for consolidation of non-viable system. And you can claim 25 points. That is the highest for this category. What is a non-viable system? There are two situations that we consider. One is first one is non-viable due to system failing. For drinking water project, the public water supply should determine that the system is failing. And for wastewater, DWR must have determined that the system is failing. If you do not have any one of this, and if you are distressed LGU, or if you have applied for that designation, you can contact us 30 days prior to submitting the application, and we will discuss that possibility of determining the system as non-viable. If you claim points under this category, you can claim some points under project benefits. You can also, depending on the project, you can also claim system management points, and you can claim affordability points. Our guidance has more information on this, so please read that. This is the second line item for the project that resolves fail or failing infrastructure. You can claim 1B points, 24 points for wastewater projects, and 22 points for drinking water projects. And 100% of the cost must be used to resolve failing infrastructure. For drinking water projects, the projects that are for the physical extension of service to connect failing system, contaminated well with MCL exceedances, and well whose yield has declined by at least 50%, these projects are eligible under this category. For wastewater, physical extension of service to connect failing septic tank system or non-discharge systems, you can claim this. on-site system with NOVs can also claim these points. This is the next category. Most of our projects fall under this category, and it is for rehab and replacement of infrastructure, and the total points are 12. If your project is expanding the treatment capacity or increasing the sewer size, they cannot claim points under this category. You need to mention that it is like for like replacement with no expansion of capacity. The narrative must mention that. New pump station or treatment plant with the same capacity as old system that is being commissioned, those projects can get these points. Looping that amounts to less than 10% of the project construction cost is allowed. New treatment units with no increase in permitted capacity, that is considered under this rehab and replacement plan. New water supply infrastructures and additional wells that are not part of rehab and replacement of the water supply are not considered as an expansion project. The project that allows interconnection that replaces treatment or storage facility with no increase in capacity, they can claim these points. Water meter replacement projects, the project that are just to replace water meters, they are not eligible under this category unless the system is classified as distressed. However, the water meter replacement associated with water line rehab and replacement, it is eligible. If the project is not eligible to claim 1C point, we can award 1D points. This is 1C point that is for old infrastructure. Our guidance has this age to consider old infrastructure. If you are replacing treatment or pumping unit, the age is 20 years. Distribution and collection lines 40 years, SCADA 10 years. So we also consider some obsolete pipe materials like vitrified clay, asbestos, cement pipes and all. If your narrative mentions that those pipe materials, we award these points. Now 50% of your project cost should be associated with replacing infrastructure, and that your budget should clearly mention that. So next slide shows the example of the budget. So if you have a project which is replacing 13,000 linear feet of 8-inch sewer pipes and 10,000 linear feet is older than 40 years, you need to consider 2 line items for this. And this you need to mention that this sewer lines or water lines are older than 40 years. So that will tell us that the more than 50% of the project cost is associated with replacing old infrastructure. 1D points, this is for expansion project. When you increase water or sewer lines, the size of the water and sewer line, this is an expansion project. If you have a pump station project, if you are increasing the capacity of the pump station, that's an expansion project. For drinking water project, interconnection project that add treatment or storage facility with no new connections, they can get 2K points, but you need to provide documents. Additional wells, treatment plants, pump stations, storage tanks to meet current and justifiable future growth. These projects are considered as expansion project. New water line to serve future development, they are not eligible to get 1D point, and as well as drinking water funding. drinking water SRF. Next line item is 1E, service to disadvantaged area. There are 20 points and 75% of the construction cost is to provide the alternate service or connection to the disadvantaged area. Now, we already talked about disadvantaged area. Kavita mentioned that it's just a small area, not the entire LGU. And disadvantaged area limited to less than half the number of total connections served by the applicant at the time of application. This means that if you have a disadvantaged area, less than 50% of them, like the area, more the area which is served by the total number of connections should be less than half of the total households. Disadvantaged area is considered based on these 4 factors. One is median household income, poverty rate, property values per capita, unemployment rate. There are some additional factors also, socioeconomic or existing contamination factors. The guidance has that information. You need to provide documentation. The narrative should provide the justification for the targeted area as the disadvantaged area. You need to provide map that identifies the disadvantaged area. You need to show the properties to be connected. The project budget should show that the 75% of the construction cost is to provide service to the disadvantaged residents. And you need to prepare the budget to show that information. And this is the example of the budget for the project that claims 1E points. So the total construction cost is $4.2 million, and they have differentiated that $3.4 million is for disadvantaged area, and this is for other construction. Similarly, for subtotal also, they have mentioned that 80% of the cost is for disadvantaged area. And here also they have mentioned that out of this total project cost, this is for disadvantaged area, which is more than 75%. So you need to clearly mention that in your budget. There are some other categories for clean water SRF, 1G and 1H, they are for stormwater projects, and 1I is for reclaimed water project.
So this, I think we have gone through multiple times. 1J for the emerging contaminant projects, 1J1 if 100% of the project cost is to address PFAS, and 1J2, 75% of the cost to address PFAS, and 1J3 for the study project. So if you're doing only 1J3, you will use the rolling application instead. So to get if you're getting like a 1J3 and the study project is getting awarded, you will have to work with us and also public water supply section to get the scope refined. So since the permitting has to happen through public water supply section, we work with them to review your scope and your proposal to do the PFAS project.
Whatever happened to 1,4-dioxane? How did that? What's the backstory? It's not.
1,4-dioxane is not an emerging contaminant, but we included that specifically for the 2H2 acute or something like that. Yeah, 2H2 acute contaminants. So you can still get that points and get the base money, compete for base money, because if you are, if you score that 2H2, whatever, that is equivalent to 2H3. So you will be, your score project will be scored like good enough.
Is there a reason why? Why is it not part of the EC program?
Because North Carolina has a huger, bigger PFAS issue than 1,4-dioxane issue. So And the funding is very limited, as you know, like, per round, it can do only $5 or $10 million. And then, for that, because of departmental priorities, we had to put that money for PFAS.
Thank you.
And if you do have a 1,4-dioxane project, please, come to us, and then we should be able to kind of work through and get prioritized. So anyway, the PFAS money is very limited. So your best bet would be that basis.
Thank you.
So this is the summary of the project purpose points that we already talked about. So I'm not going to go through it. And CDBG is not applicable this round, as we do not have any money for the CDBG program this round. Jen, how are we doing on the time? We are okay. So the category 2. All right. So let's do category 2 really quickly. Category 2 is for project benefits. For project benefits, a portion of the project must relate to the specific benefit, and the points only earned when the applicant identifies a direct connection between the project and type of the expected benefit. So you cannot just throw in something, that is not totally connected to the project just to get these points. That's what it meant. And narratives must fully describe the benefits of the proposed project. And in cases where a single application includes multiple project types, project benefit points must match project purpose that was claimed. So that's the idea, that you cannot throw in something like, a $10,000 generator, like, other side of the town to your water line project in this side of the town to get that project benefit. So it has to be somehow done. So if you are doing a well project, of course that generator makes sense to use it. So that's what it is. 2B1 is the specific points for the project benefiting public water systems. So this is like really related to 1B, that is like a contaminated well or drying wells. Here, project replaces dry wells gets 1B, and correspondingly you get a 2B1 project purpose points. And again, this is also addresses contamination of public drinking water source. So if it is like 1,4-dioxane and other primary contaminants, you will get 2H1 and 2H2. 2H3 and 2H4 is specifically for PFAS. So if you're, even though PFAS has an MCL, you cannot claim 2H1 and 2H3 for PFAS. So this is either or. These points. 2B1 is no longer eligible to receiving emerging. So emerging contaminant line item, like even if it, the emerging contaminant is PFAS and PFAS is an MCL, but you cannot say, you cannot claim 1B and 2B1 for this because PFAS is in its own category 1J and 2H3 and 2H4. Here 2B2, this is another one for the lead service line points. So we included this historically to prioritize lead service line replacement, but now we do have a different source of funding, lead service line replacement funding program, which has much more money available. So we encourage you to utilize that program instead of adding, onto this base program. So what we did this round is to discourage like adding 1 or 2 lead service line to your existing big SRF project and claiming these 10 points. We made sure that, if that lead service line one, it has to be connected to the project that you're doing. You cannot just do a wastewater treatment plant or water treatment plant project and do a couple of lead service line and still claim the point. You cannot do that. And also 30% of the project cost, even if you're doing a water line project, if you have to claim the lead points, so 30% of that project cost must be related to removing lead service line. So this is our way to limiting our base funds for these lead service projects and encouraging you all to utilize the lead service line instead. Any questions?
Okay, 2C points. These are for wastewater projects only. 2B points are for drinking water projects, and these are for wastewater. There are two subcategories, 2C1 and 2C2. If your project is replacing or repairs certain sewer lines or eliminates failed on-site system or non-discharge system, or it resolves managerial, technical, and financial issues, they can claim this 15 points. Another subcategory is 2C2. If the project eliminates malfunctioning on-site wastewater system, they can claim 10 points. For 2C1 points, the project should provide public services to houses with failing septic tank system. The single family residences with failed spray or drip irrigation system can also claim these points. For this kind of projects, the application must include a letter from a registered sanitarian or a licensed scientist or county health department that identifies those households and mentions that they have the failed on-site system. If you have sewers that with reported SSOs that reach water bodies or back up into homes, you can claim these points. You need to provide supporting documents like spill report or NOVs for SSOs, map, etc. And sometimes if you are consolidating two wastewater system, and if that project resolves managerial, technical, and financial issues, then this project, they can, by receiving 1A points, they can claim 2C1 points. But you need to provide documentation for that. 2C2 points, these points are just for failing on-site wastewater system. And if your system is failing, it should receive a notice of violation from an authorized agent. Your project area should have like more than 50% of the household being connected, must have the documented failing system. This application should provide a list of addresses of those failed septic tank systems. You need to provide map with street names, house numbers with malfunctioning systems. If you are connecting them to the new sewer line, you need to show that on the map, and you need to include the copies of NOVs. Two E points addresses administrative orders or special orders by consent, and 2E2 is resolves notice of violation or deficiency. And to claim these points, must an application must clearly establish how the proposed project will lead to compliance and address that specific regulatory requirement. So, in order to get these points, you have to show that you have an issue and show that how this proposed project will address that deficiency. So that connection must be very clear in the application. And the enforcement documents must not be more than 3 years old. So system merger, 2F1 and 2F2. So if it's in order to claim 2F1, it should be a physical consolidation into a single regional system. And 2F2 should include, it's like a system regionalization or partnership, still retaining separate ownership. So 2F1 is a complete merger. You are a single under the single ownership, but 2F2, you can still maintain separate ownership, but it has, it should have a agreement or merger document between the systems to operate compliant. And EC projects can also receive 2F2, but the application must be very clear on how this system merger or the regionalization will address PFAS issues of one of the systems or both systems. So in order to show that, you must show that one of the system have a PFAS contamination by successfully claiming 2H3 or 2H4.
So then the other system that you're connecting to have a treatment already, or they're already meeting their PFAS. So in that way, you can get rid of the system that has a higher PFAS issue and connect to the system that has no PFAS issue, or at least, have a project that is already planned and in construction that is going to address this issue. So in that case, you can, utilize this 2M2. 2H1, acute contamination. So primary MCL violations, if you have issues with that, you can get 15 points. And 2H2 is for other than acute. This is where we talked about 1,4-dioxane will come into place. So it's like 5 points. And 2H3, other PFAS compounds will get only 2 points. So if your PFAS issue, PFAS compound does not have an established MCL or HI, this is where you can claim the points. And 2H4 is for where MCL or SR index violation for all these PFOA, PFOS, GenX, PFBS, PFNA, and PFHS. So these are the compounds that will give you the 5 points. So if you look at that, 2H2, the 1,4-dioxane, and the PFAS scores that not approximately, exactly the same 5 points. So that's how we think it, and they both are important, but for PFAS, specific IGA, PFAS money, yes. PFAS money, we limit for IGA EC money, we limit only PFAS. In order to get these points, 2H3, 2H4, we have to use EPA validated testing methods. And for public water systems, that sample must not be older than 12 months old at the time of application. And if it's a private drinking water well, we know private drinking water wells are not getting sampled very often. So that, that date of the sampling must be like less than 3 years from the date of application. Then there is a little bit of a leeway for the GenX contamination. So if you are located within 50 miles of Chemours facility, you only need to show that 25% of the wells are contaminated with PFAS in order to claim all the 1J1 points. And for 1J2, a minimum of 50%. So even if you are not in that Chemours area, but you still have PFAS issue, minimum 50% of the wells must have data exceeding thresholds, and 75% of the total cost must be to address PFAS in order to get 1J2. Any questions on this? The private wells and public. So 2H3 and 2H4 must replace or provide new treatment to the wastewater treatment or drinking water supply system affected by emerging contaminants. So one thing to note is that we do not have a state standards or water quality standards for wastewater projects. So we are going with the drinking water standards for wastewater project too. So that for now, until we get the more reasonable water quality standard, that's not the standard we have. So we're going with that wastewater project too. Interconnection. So 2K1, new potable water system interconnection, and 2K2, addition of a larger potable water interconnection. 2K3, other interconnection. Other interconnections not limited to potable water systems. So it can also be raw water connections. Must provide documentation of both partners' willingness to interconnect. So you cannot just claim that they're going to interconnect. There should be a documentation from both parties, that agreement that they are willing. Then resiliency points. Right now we have 2N1 through 2N7. 2N1 through 2N3 is for floodplain related resiliency. 2N4, to moving out of the floodplain. 2N4 to 2N5 is fortifying or elevating the infrastructure within the 100-year floodplain. 2N6 is for downsizing infrastructure. 2N7 is for redundancy and resiliency. That also includes cybersecurity. So one thing to notice for 2N7, that redundancy or resiliency must be new or improved. If you are already changing an equipment, you're putting a new equipment in there, and that comes with a backup power, that does not qualify for 2N7. But if you have an existing equipment and you are retrofitting with a backup power, that will give you 2N7. 7. So that redundancy or resiliency must be new and improved, not like, if you have to do it because it's a new infrastructure.
2 endpoints, these are for wastewater projects.
2O, sorry.
2 points. If your project is directly benefiting impaired waters, you can claim these points. Your narrative should provide stream name impairment as documented in the latest integrated report. You need to use the latest report. If, for example, if you have that stream impaired for BOD back in 2014, and if you include that integrated report, we will not consider that. You need to use the latest report, the latest integrated report or 303 list posted on the DWR's Division of Water Resources website. You need to discuss in your narrative what is the impairment and how the project will directly benefit the impairment. Now, for example, if the stream, if you are proposing some rehab and replacement in project for the wastewater treatment plant, and the stream, the impaired stream is in the upstream of this wastewater treatment plant, whatever treatment you are proposing, it will not benefit those impaired waters. So we review all those things and award these points. The map, you also need to include map with project location, stream location, impaired segment. Some common errors, these are very, very hard to get points. Like most of the time, we review this two, 3 times to make sure that they completely follow our guidance. And sometimes project does not address impairments. Example is the stream is impaired for coliform, and if the project is replacing headworks, it is not going to benefit this impaired water, even though if the stream is downstream. So please follow our guidance and make sure that everything, whatever we are asking for, you need to provide that information and establish the connection between the project and the impairment. Sometimes maps, you include the map, but do not show the location of the project and impairment. We can't establish the connection. 2P points. These are for special water classifications. We have added some more classifications. So special waters, like for example, swamp water, trout water, high quality water, outstanding resource waters, nutrient sensitive waters. And we have added these more classifications. UWL is unique wetland, PNA is primary nursing area, AFSA is anadromous fish swamp area, and SAV is submerged aquatic vegetation. So if the receiving water, like if the water close to the project area is classified as this, and if you can establish the connection between the project and their impact on this water, you can claim this point. Again, say just like the 2O points, you need to provide a map that shows the project location, the location of special waters. If you have any SSOs, you need to provide SSO reports. If the project is claiming that the project eliminates this SSOs and they will not reach this special water bodies, then you can claim those points. You need to check our guidance for more information. Even this 2P points, these are hard to get points, so follow the guidance to claim these points. It is 12:13, excuse me. Time for lunch. We're going to take an hour and a half for lunch. So there's plenty of eating options, I know, down south. Unfortunately, Logan's Seaboard Cafe is no longer there, but we have Peace China down south. There might be a couple of new stores open in the new buildings, going north.
Going south, we've got Daily Planet Cafe, it's just a block away, and other restaurants on Fayetteville Street. So it's a beautiful day outside. Feel free to enjoy it. We'll be back here at 1:45 and resume. We'll wrap up the priority rating system. And then we will go forward with the rest of our program and hopefully get you out by 3 to 3:30. So y'all have a good lunch. Those of you online, I assume you'll get something out of your refrigerator or go out and enjoy the day. And we will talk to you at 1:45. Thank you. Okay, everyone online, if you can give me an okay, I'm here or something, that would be great. We are going to go ahead and get started, and I'll let Tripti take it away to finish out our priority rating system with. Okay, we'll continue with the priority rating system. The next category is system management. We have 3A points and 3B points. We have not included 3B points, but they are for 3B points are for operating ratio, and that this ratio is calculated based on the financial information that is provided with the application. So we'll talk about 3A points. 3A points are for capital planning activity. There are two subcategories, 3A1 and 3A2. You can get either of 3A1 or 3A2 points. 3A1 points are for asset management plan, 10 points. The narrative should describe 4 key asset management plan areas. So make sure that you read our guidance, because sometimes people just attach the AMP and write a note that CAMP. We will not award those points. So make sure that you describe 4 key areas. The AMP should be fully implemented, and it must qualify for this 3A2 points for capital improvement plan. So 3A2 points, they are for capital improvement plan. 2 points. If you have included asset management plan and somehow the documentation is not enough, and if we do not award those AMP points, 10 points, and if this if the narrative and supporting documentation is eligible for 3A2 points, we will award those 2 points, even though you didn't claim that. So CIP 3A for 3A2 points, CIP capital improvement plan, it must be awarded within 2 years of the application date. It should span 10 years from the adoption date. For first 5 years, all projects should be listed by year, and for next 5 years, if you list the project with total cost, we will award those points. And with this capital improvement plan, you will submit a priority matrix, and that the proposed project should be highlighted in that priority matrix. So make sure that if you're, for example, if your project is to rehabilitate 10,000 linear feet of sewer, so that project name, the name of the project
which is mentioned in the application should be there in the priority matrix. So if the name is slightly different, but, or if we cannot determine if it is the same project, we will not award those grants. If you are applying for planning grants, if the project is the actual project, the construction project is listed in the CIP, we will award those points. Common errors for 3A, 2 points. Sometimes the resolution is more than 2 years old. So if we see the date, the adoption date, and if it is beyond 2 years, we will not award those points. Sometimes it is not created for 10 years. Another mistake that people make is like they applied for this project last year and they didn't get award, they didn't get funding. So they are using the same CIP matrix. So the CIP matrix will mention those previous years. For example, they applied in 2023. So the plan is from 2023 to 2033. But if they use the same matrix in 2024, without changing the years on the CIP, it will show 2023 to 2033, then it will be 9 years CIP. So we will not award those points. So make sure that the CIP matrix shows 10 years. Sometimes, as I mentioned, sometimes it is the project is highlighted on the CIP matrix, but we cannot determine it is the same project, so we will not award those points. Sometimes the supporting documentation, it does not have the minutes showing, city council minutes showing the adoption of CIP. Many times we have observed that the CIP mentions some dollar amount and the funding requested is totally different. CIP shows $5 million and the funding requested is $7 million. So if the cost, if there is a large cost difference, we will not award those points. If there is no explanation of change in CIP priority, we will not award those points. If the application narrative is not provided, then we will not award those points. Now, Kavita will talk about category.
Thank you, Tripti. So that took us like category 1, 2, and 3. So one more category left in our priority rating system. That is category 4. With this, we will conclude the PRS, and that is the most confusing session of our training. So once you go through this, and you can kind of relax, we'll have some easy things next. So affordability. This is where we award based on the how the affordability of the applicant, right? The smaller the local government, they need more support, so we give them more points to make them eligible for more principal forgiveness. That's how this section works. If so, for example, if you have a less than 1,000 residential connection, they have the most points in the affordability 4A. And when you're using the connections, use only number of sewer or water connections as of date of application. So don't include that in in future that you will have, you're expecting maybe 30 more connections, but just use today, what is your connections? That's what we need in the application. And DWI staff will provide points based on connections provided in the application form. Applicant must explain any differences. So we should clearly, it should be very clear how many connections this local government unit have. And if we think if there is some, discrepancy, we might even go and check, website or call up people and make sure if that is the correct information. But don't rely on us to go check. It is based, purely ranked or rated based on what information you provide. Only if it will benefit you, we will go back and check, right? We don't want to give you this many points because we know this is not the right number that you do. So this we talked about already. We, for the current monthly water bill for 5,000 water sewer bill for 5,000 gallons, we updated that dollar amount, but we didn't change the percentile. So still, this is the same thing. You get most points if your rates are like even higher than 95th percentile. Only claim one subcategory based on the current monthly utility bill. So if you have like with 4B, if you have 4B1, 4B2, so we will only give you like one. So it's like in each category, one category can be claimed. And this is also like when we review, this is automated from our end. So if you make a little bit, smaller errors in this, this is the only section where we go and put in the numbers that you provided and we calculate the points based on that. So it's not, we truly don't look at what number, what points you claim, but rather than what data you provided and use our own scorecard to come up with this affordability points. Again, if the utility have a sewer service and water service, you have to provide the bill for both. But if in some cases, some of the utilities only provide water or only provide sewer, in this case, in those cases, we have a conversion factor to convert, to see how much it would have been, if you have provided both services. So that way you're not getting, undue disadvantage, like for providing only one service. So our system will take care of that. Again, use lowest residential rate, that is in-town rate, and provide calculations if you have to, calculate 5,000 gallons. So usually sometimes it's not very evident. So you need to show your water rate form and say base is this much and per 1,000 gallons this much. And then you come up with like how you came up with that rate. We also double check based on the utility for the rate form that you provided, but we also need to see how you came up with that rate. The 4C1 through 4C3 is for LGU indicators. So if the applicant has like most LGU indicators worse than state benchmark, that is if they are more struggling, you will get like that utility will get more points. The LGU indicators are property valuation per capita, person population change, poverty rate, median household income, and unemployment rate. Again, these are the points that you provide the data and we calculate based on our calculator. So there is this automated calculator we use, and based on your data, we put in data, and then our spreadsheet will spit up whatever points that you deserve on that category. Population change, you don't need to really go with whatever the data that is given in our affordability calculator sheet. You can claim, if you have some other method that your utility or local government is following, saying, okay, our data is like much more different than whatever it is published by ACS, Community Service Survey Center. We can actually take that. So if you have a clear description on why you think your population change doesn't make sense in the whatever is given in our application, you can claim that with the description, and we will look into that and accept if it is reasonable. This is the same thing, the alternative population data, like how you can use your population data, like you think it is true for your community, and you can come up with the date here. Data here. All right, this is 4C4. I think we talked about 4C4 a little bit more before. So that is benefiting disadvantaged area. So if your project gets 1E, that on project purpose, that is benefiting disadvantaged area, you will automatically get 4C4. You don't need to like really, do a lot of write-up for it. But if you have your project purpose is not 1E, we need to see a very clear write-up telling exactly what the benefit is for that community. If that benefit must be a public health benefit or another benefit, it should not be that, oh, they are so distressed. If you give us grant money, it will help economically, their rates will be low. We have seen that the most, that explanation, but that is not enough to get these 4 points. It has to be health, public health or environmental health kind of a related benefit. Qualification, 50% of the construction cost must be to benefit those disadvantaged area. So as you know, this is exactly for every line item. We say that, you know, you have to see the guidance. The narrative must explain everything that we say that the guidance is that we need. So all this information applies to all category points that we have. And the project budget, again, you know, if we say that 50% of the cost must be to address disadvantaged area, your project budget sheet that you included with the application must show that is, you know, that 50%, right? Like, or more. So that is one required item in here. Yeah, this is the key, right? 4C4 points, why it's important. Of course, you get additional points here. And also this is the key to get more principal forgiveness. If your utility is large and you would not be, you know, qualified for a regular principal forgiveness. So here, if you qualify for 4C4, regardless of your other criteria, we will give you like a, not bigger, just that project is eligible to get up to 50% of principal. So this is the quick, you know, very useful line item that we came up with for utilities, like a big, large utilities who are willing to go help the small pockets of population that who is. So this is how we try to encourage those utilities. Any questions on category 4 or any other categories? Any questions before we just wrap up with some quiz? No questions? All right. So here, this is the new thing, right? In order to receive 2B2, net service line replacement points, what % of the total construction cost must be to address lead lines? C, yes, 30%, correct? And projects addressing PFAS can claim 2H1 and 2H3 points. No, yes, that's false. Because, you know, PFAS is covered under 2H3, 2H1 is still that other MCL primary acute contaminants. All right, CIPs need to have been adopted within A, correct, 2 years of application date. All right, we're done. We're done with the priority rating system. So maybe we can breathe, or I can take a breath. Before we go to decentralized wastewater treatment system pilot program. I'm not sure how many of you heard about it. Like we had this pilot program under the Clean Water SRF IUP since 2022. And we didn't get like much of an interest, like since like 2022 through 2024. So suddenly 2024, when the IUP went to public comments, we got like a lot of comments saying how we can like adjust our IUP and private rating system and our guidance to make it more attractive for your local governments to come and ask for this specific fund to help homeowners to fix their septic system. So, and we did. We kind of, you know, took their public comments, we incorporated some of them into our IUP and made our IUP a little bit more attractive for those systems who is willing to take on loan on behalf of their private residents. So this one is a pass-through funding program, so we cannot directly fund the homeowners. It has to be through the local government unit. And what we, at this point right now, what we did is we set aside $1 million in every IUP to help with this thing. And then last round is the first time we awarded this. $500,000 of this fund has already been awarded fall 2024. So that's like recently that went to Baxter actually. So they came in, asked for $500,000 to pass through the money to local residents to fund their failing septic system. And now we have the $500,000 left for this round. And if we do not have takers, it will automatically go to our regular case water So since we have demand there, we will just only hold this $1 million for a year. If we do not have any takers, it will go back into our regular IUP. And here, this is like a 0% interest loan, even if it is also PF eligible based on some criteria. And even if you don't get PF eligibility, it's still a 0% loan. So you can pass on that 0% loan to your homeowners. It's still a good deal out there right now. And we do not determine how this PF eligibility can be determined. We make the utility or local government unit to come up with that criteria. What is their criteria on giving their residents, like, principal forgiveness from this money? So our only ask is, if you are using median household income, it should not be like, you should not give this as a grant money to people who makes more than state median average. So that is the only thing that we say. You can set your own criteria, but if you're using income as a criteria, it should not be more than the state average in China. Yes.
Is the payback period for this loan 20 years?
I believe so. Yes. Repeat the question. Sorry. The question. I have to still get used to this. The question is, the payback period for this loan is 20 years or not? Since this is the first one, I think we wrote it as the same as the other IUP. So at this point, it is 20 years, unless we want to revisit it and change it to the next IUP. But at this point, it is 20 years. Yeah, and 0% is kind of a very attractive deal. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. So what is the principal forgiveness eligibility? So if the local government agrees to pass through all of the funding, the 100% of the funding to residents who qualify for receiving principal forgiveness based on whatever criteria they establish, they can get a 100% principal forgiveness loan. That would be like up to $250,000. So you would get a $250,000 grant like funding to pass through to the homeowners if you agree to pay only to the people who qualify for that, whatever standards that you set. And then if you agree that 50% of whatever we gave will go to the qualified homeowners, we will limit our principal forgiveness to 50%, but the total amount is $500,000. So you still will get $250,000 in principal forgiveness. The other $250,000 will be in loan. But in this case, you're agreeing that you will pass through that first $250,000 principal forgiveness to the qualified home. So that's how it works. Okay, I think I didn't do this. Since it's drinking is coming from Clean Water SRF, all of the Clean Water SRF requirement will apply. So Davis-Bacon, American Iron and Steel, and all those, and it has to go through LGC, and you have to pay 2% closing fee. For the BABA, Buy America, Build America, I am trying to check if we can make available some of the recycled money rather than the cap grant to this, because I don't know, to make each homeowner meet BABA is going to be a little bit of a stretch. So at this point, this is how it is, but I am trying to see if we can, not make these projects BABA by making this 1 million come from our recycled SRF money rather than the cap grants that we get from EPA. So that is still there. So, just for you to think about and then come to us if that's such a situation. All right, I'm done. So now we will have lead service line, and our lead service line expert, David, will.
Real expert.
Good afternoon. All right, let's get started. IIJA, stands for Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, Lead Service Line Replacement Program. This slide shows the first three allotments that the state of North Carolina received from Congress through EPA for this particular funding program. We have pretty much expended all of the first two, the 2022 and the 2023 CAP grants. There's about $400,000 left from the 2023 CAP grant. And for the next funding round, we're planning to use the funds from the 2024 CAP grant. You will notice that the CAP grant for the North Carolina allotment for the year 2024 is slightly smaller than the two previous ones, but there's still a good significant amount of money. Half of that, 49% to be exact, is going to be reserved for principal forgiveness, loan forgiveness. And once the set asides that pay for program of technical assistance, program management, administration of the program are taken away from the allotment, there is about $56 million total available for funding project related to that service line. So you can see, you can do a quick math. You look to see how much principal forgiveness is available over the out of the total of 56 million is more than half of that. So this program traditionally has a lot of principal forgiveness built into it. We have taken that $56 million available for project and have made some tentative preliminary estimates of how much we want to have available for each funding round during this calendar year, 2025. You can see the number broken down by the principal forgiveness and repayable loan. We have about estimated preliminary $17.5 million for each round. The first round awards will be made at the April meeting of the State Water Infrastructure Authority. The deadline for that is just passed. It was March 3rd. So the next available round for applicants will be the July awards with a deadline of June 2nd for submittal of the application. The following would be the September awards with deadline of, I remember correctly, August 1st. And the next one, awards at the December meeting of the authority, the deadline would be November 3rd for submittal of the application. So you can see that if you miss a deadline for application, for submitting your application, there is one about 2 months later. All right, who is eligible to receive this funds? Units of local government, of course, non-profit water utilities. Talking here, we're talking about utilities, water utilities. They can be of course, water and sewer, but they have to be water utilities. And investor-owned water utilities. What activities are eligible to receive this kind of funding? What kind of project can you apply? Anything related to investigation, assessment, replacement of lead service lines and components of water service lines that may include lead. And I understand they're called, in the business, they're called goosenecks or have this fancy name, pigtails, things of that nature. Unfortunately, not meters, not water meters. Galvanized service line, if can be demonstrated that they, at one point during the life of that service line, they were downstream of something that contained lead, whether it's a meter or a gooseneck or it actually section them. What is not available, the type of project that is not available for this type of funding is projects that include anything other than service lines. So for example, if along with the service line, you want to remove any water distribution main that may be galvanized, may have lead or lead joints, joints that include lead, you cannot do that. So on that, we recommend that you split your project. You put all the service line work in one project. You apply for that for this kind of funding. And for the rest of the project, you apply for the regular drinking water SOF. The project, if a project includes replacement, you have to replace the entire portion of the service line that is made of lead. So, looking at the next slide, looking at this picture. So, if when you investigate and you find that there is lead both on the what this picture is represented as, the system owned portion of the service line and on the customer owned portion of the service line. If there is lead on both sides, the lead, that lead has to be removed on both sides. You cannot just do the utility owned side. For this particular removal to be eligible for fund. Yes, a question.
You see that is something that is also shown in red. So does that mean that they need to place the plumbing too, or just up to the
Based on what?
the plumbing?
The plumbing. Oh, okay, the question was, looking at the picture, we also saw premise plumbing. Is the premise plumbing included as an eligible cost? No, that is not. It's in the picture, the premise plumbing is included in the picture just to reinforce the point that you cannot, and we can go back to previous slides here, okay? If you see last bullet point, the funds cannot be used to do any in-house premise plumbing repairs or replacements, okay? But back to this, if in a particular address, I'll get to you in a second, a particular address, you do not have permission from the property owner to replacing their portion of the service line, and this address is included in your scope of the project, you will not be eligible to receive funding for that particular address, for the work that you do at that particular address, not for the entire project. In other words, it's not the poison pill that kills the entire project. Only go by what you are able to do. You have a question? Question was to go back one slide.
Okay, so my question was, for galvanized wiring replacement, for water, for service lines that are reported in the inventory, and GRR, that is galvanized wiring replacement, what kind of documentation do you require to reimburse the replacement of that line?
Okay. The question was, what kind of documentation is required?
Galvanized. Reason I ask is because that includes galvanized lines for which you cannot document that there would never
Yes.
an upstream. If
Yes.
you cannot document.
Yes. That distinction between what you can document have been or still be upstream of the galvanized and what you cannot document. That distinction is relevant now. We're beginning to use the 2024 CAP grant funds. That distinction is relevant for inventorying purposes, for reporting to comply with the lead and copper rule, first the lead and copper rule revision, now the lead and copper rule improvements. for reporting to public water supply section, what you have identified that particular service line to be made on. For the funding standpoint, now, beginning with the 2024 CAP grant, we can no longer fund removal of galvanized unless you can document that lead has at one point or still is being upstream of that galvanized. What is your question was, what kind of documentation? Well, if it was in the past, obviously you need to provide some records documentation. How do you know that it was at one point in time there was lead there? If there still is, photograph. Does that answer the question? Another question.
Thank you, David. That was not the answer I wanted. I think that's the correct answer. There was, however, a comment that came up that you might want to read. I saw it pop up. It seemed to be about this.
A comment on the slide?
No, no, no. Susan,
Yeah.
Susan.
Can you confirm if the customer does not give approval for replacing their side of the service line, you can't get funding just for that? Correct?
Okay. I was going to get to it later, but let's tackle it now. If the customer does not give permission, okay, what is a utility supposed to do? Well, the first option is the utility is going to have to decide whether to do any work at that particular address, at that particular connection, or not. If they want to go ahead and do only the removal of the lead on their side, on the utility side, there are two options to do that. One is to give up on doing it on the owner side, on the private side. In that case, yes, for that address, the utility is not going to get any funding for the work done at that address. The second option is the utility has to make, let's call them good faith efforts, documented efforts. And they tried repeatedly. EPA accept at least 3 consecutive attempts to get approval from the property owner. Each time you have to come up with a different proposal, with a different offer. You cannot just call in 3 times, repeat the same question. Say, do you want to do it? No, thanks. Call it again. Want to do it? No. You have to be, you have to have a different solution every time you propose. If after 3 attempts, you got to know, then yes. At that point, you can go remove only the lead on the utility side, and that can get found. That can be found. Yes, question.
So this goes back to the justification question. So if you have galvanized lines in an area and you know that there were also lead service lines in that area, even though you don't have documentation for the specific lines that you're going to replace because, you know, maybe the other lead lines were already replaced at some point, is that sufficient documentation to say, well, there was likely lead here at some point because other homes used to have lead?
The key word is likely. In other words, likely introduced the concept, the notion of uncertainty. However, if you can demonstrate that somewhere upstream, it doesn't have to be within 50 feet of the galvanized. It could be up the street and even more up the street. But you have to have some way of documenting that the water that was running through that service line is made of galvanized metal. At one point was flowing through something that had lead.
So there's other lead service lines, but their water in their service line shouldn't have flowed through these.
No. Oh, that was your question? No. If it's an adjacent, down along that street, some of these have lead, that doesn't demonstrate that galvanized and that address was downstream unless it was coming from the distribution line.
Zero.
No, not lead, but historically there were some joints that used lead containing solder. There were galvanized lines, but galvanized main distribution lines.
Yeah, I guess that's what we're struggling with because we can't prove that there was never lead upstream, but we can't prove that there wasn't lead upstream. So we
I know.
can't prove either way, so we can't get funding.
In fact,
But they have to, but they have to replace it.
But they have to
from
replace it.
GRR.
when you say you have to replace it, you based on what? On the Atlantic Upper Road improvements?
GRR.
Because you can't prove that there wasn't.
It's presumptive, my,
It's presumed.
For the funding program, EPA had told us that, now, beginning with the 2024,
Makes sense.
the guy who knows way more than I do is standing in front of me. Sitting.
Trying to hide.
okay,
That's why- it is
maybe
why-
we should go back.
The good thing is up to this round, like whenever you already got the money, you can use for that.
The old-
Only the coming, like 24, 25, 26, you cannot. And that is not our making, it is EPA, like clearly like came up and presented to us with a big webinar, so we will also be quite.
Is you may have clarified this already, so the March funding round that just closed, is that $24?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. So basically, if we can't prove that there was, but we also can't prove that there wasn't because we know there was lead in the area, basically our SOL. That's what I'm trying to find out, is like,
That's what I'm hearing too.
yeah.
Yes, the thing is that I'm not convinced, I trust you. I trust you, but until 5 minutes ago, I was not convinced that you have complied with the lead and copper rule. You have to replace galvanized unless you can demonstrate that it has been.
So it was my understanding that you had to replace galvanized unless you prove that there wasn't.
You had to report it
Right,
as GRR.
right, but it's, my understanding GRR is galvanized requiring replacement.
Yes, you have to, yes, yes. But because before replacement, you see, you could have done the initial inventory only based on records, okay? Now you are in the second phase of the inventory. You have to go out in the field and do a positive identification of the
You
material,
have that.
or perhaps a predictive model, okay? So this is the phase when there is a lot of uncertainty about that galvanized, what it was downstream of, that can be resolved, let's say, this uncertainty. Oh, yes, this one does have a piece of lead in front of it. This one doesn't, and there is no record that ever showed that it was. Therefore, is it really imperative that we replace it? According to the funding program, it's not imperative that you replace it.
Yeah, so our problem is that in all of our mains, we know we don't have lead mains in this particular system. But we can't prove that there were never lead mains, or there were never lead lines in that system. We can't prove the negative because it's been removed, there's no records, at some point, right? And
Okay.
so we can't prove the negative, but we can't prove a positive, so we're sort of stuck in the middle where it's classified by public water supply as galvanized requiring replacement, so it has to be replaced. But for the purposes of funding, we can't prove a negative or a positive. We just know that.
I
it's
understand.
likely.
I understand.
That is a good thing, probably, if you can comment on the new IUP, we might be able to think about some creative ways to make that happen. Not promising anything, but probably if it is a widespread problem for you all, we will definitely take a look at it, so.
Yes, not only that, it also, another option is to make that project the subject of a DWSRF
Yeah,
application.
they already, because we
Because-
cannot change rules for the lead service line at all. What we can do is we can put in some other source in there to cover this de minimis type of thing. It's not like big amount, like 10% probably.
Yeah, but we can't submit, as far as I understood the earlier conversation, we can't submit just a lead service line with just the project through the SRF. Has to include main work, correct?
Well, but
No,
I think that if you can excuse me, I think that if they can demonstrate that this program will not pay for that, then we can take it as an eligible DWSRF application, even if it's only service lines.
We can actually,
As we're moving on, can you summarize this discussion? Because
Sorry about that.
lost right now.
All right. Definitely, let's have this, continue this conversation later. Sorry for, of course, people that are attending it via webcast, but there is more to this. Now, to finish up with this slide, there is obviously no need to replace any portion of the service line that had been previously replaced. If your records show that, yes, there was lead there, but it has been removed, unless, of course, it's associated, that lead is associated with galvanized. All right. Okay.
One more online question. Do you submit property owner approval with the application?
No. Every project that includes replacement, so actual, if you would, construction work, okay, will require an engineering report and plans and specifications. So you submit that documentation after your application has been awarded the fund. I want to focus particularly on the last bullet point. The 2024 service line replacement funds may include additional flexibility. Part of that flexibility, I already addressed it, was those three attempts with the property owner to get the lead removed from the service line. And possible option that you can offer is not only that the utility does the work at no expense to the property owner, but that the property owner actually hires somebody, hires a plumbing contractor to do the work, and then you can work out different option how this work is going to be paid for. Whether you reimburse the homeowner, whether you deduct it from the water bills, whether you pay the service provided, the plumbing contractor directly, etc. As Kavita was saying, be creative, try everything that you're allowed, you as a utility are allowed to offer the property owner. Once you have exhausted all the possibilities, then you have demonstrated your good faith efforts. Yes, one more question.
It is my understanding that there are no minimus exclusions from American Iron and Steel, nor from Davis-Bacon for the hiring of a local plumber. It's going to pick up things at the local plumbing supply shop. Therefore, have great difficulty getting a letter from the manufacturer stating that the materials are American Iron and Steel.
Good point. If the plumbing contractor would work under a contract with the utility, who is the recipient of the funds, probably yes, Davis-Bacon would apply, and definitely American Iron and Steel would apply. When you mentioned that the minimus, I have to say, just because it's a small piece of piping, well, if that's all there is, that's 100% of the material. So the de minimis would not apply. Okay, only 5% of that piece of pipe can not be made in America, according to American Iron and Steel. And
Difficult. It's hard for me to imagine how one documents.
We are here to talk about applications. These are all problems that get resolved once your application is funded. When you talk to our project managers, you submit all your options on how to do the work via the engineering report, lead to you preparing the specification, the contract document to the work done. But now, that would be a little bit outside of this conversation. All right, so we talked about principal forgiveness and 0% interest loan terms. We've seen how more than half of the money available for funding project is going to be in principal forgiveness. On the repayable portion, besides the zero interest rate, the terms are 20 years for the repayment of the loan portion for projects that include replacement, any replacement. in 5 years for projects that include inventory activities only. Principal forgiveness, defined as the portion of the loan that doesn't have to be paid back, it is forgiven. How do we determine how much principal forgiveness will work to each application? Based on our traditional criteria of affordability that considered the characteristics of the applicant as a community, but also we considered whether the application, the project presented with the application benefits a disadvantaged area. You've heard earlier today talk about the disadvantaged area. We are still accepting disadvantaged areas if the entire service area of the applicant is considered disadvantaged, unlike the other type of projects. Yes? For this program, but typically it's not necessary. It doesn't get any points. It only makes an applicant that would be otherwise ineligible for principal forgiveness under affordability criteria eligible for it. And we start with 50%. But it contemplates that the entire service area, not just a pocket, like you described it, a pocket of the service area, is disadvantaged. We start with $1 million cap to principal forgiveness initial award, or whatever the application earns, whichever is lower. And we can actually increase if at the end of the project priority list, all the projects that are eligible to be funded and to receive principal forgiveness have received principal forgiveness. If there is any principal forgiveness funds left for that round, we can increase the initial allocation. So we can go from 25% to 35%, 45%, etc., up to 100%. Conditions. Typically, all our funding construction project, the costs are reimbursed, or we make disbursement for costs that have been incurred. We don't release funds upfront. And as we've been talking about a moment ago, the DWSRF conditions apply. Davis-Bacon for prevailing wage rates, American Iron Steel, and Build America, Buy America. 3 types of projects you see the application for. That determines the priority points for category 1 project purpose. The highest priority goes to projects that replace known service lines. In the application, please tell us how you know how each of those lines that you're proposing to replace, how did you determine that they have led? Don't just plump a number of service line into an area and say, in this neighborhood, we estimate that they're on lead. No, you have to know positively that there is lead at each of those addresses. Yes, we require with the application a list of addresses. If it's 500 addresses, we require a list of 500 addresses. Just make sure that the document with the list is legible. We have received large documents. Unfortunately, the quality of that PDF image was such that when we had to necessarily zoom in, read anything, the pixelation was such that they were not legible. So please, before you submit these large documents with all these lists of addresses, GIS coordinate if you want, or GPS coordinate if you want, make sure that the document is readable. Second type of application, what we call familiarly, the find and replace, or verifying materials and replace what you find to be lead. There is a cap of $2 million for each project. And out of that 2 million, you cannot budget more than $1 million for verification activities, right? Also, for that, you need to provide us with how did you determine that these service lines need to be verified for lead? Basically, how do you know that they are classified as unknown using the terminology of the lead service, the lead and copper rule inventory? However, the requirement for the maps and for the list of addresses is less stringent than for the other type of project. Here, yes, you can say, you can provide a map that shows an area shaded and say, in this area, our inventory identified 672 unknown. You don't need to give us the address of each of those 672, but you need to identify the project area or project areas clearly on a map, right? Third type of project, inventory only, with an initial cap of $1 million per project. And that one just tell us if you have already done any kind of inventory. At this point, you must have, because the deadline for submitting the initial inventory was last October. So tell us how much more inventory you want to do, why, and what's the goal of this inventory. Typically, further investigation. Yes, question.
So, at 3 million, excuse me, at 3 million in time, places, there's 2 million here.
Yes, it is 2 million.
It's
It's slide 12.
like, well,
That is a, there's a,
5, 3. They're talking about.
there's an error. Yes, that is an error. I'm sorry, I apologize. Yes, it's 2 million. Find and replace. So slide 12, please correct it. It's 2 million, not 3 million for find and replace. We have in each round, we reserve 50% of the funds available. So each round, initial estimate is $70 million. We take half of that, and we initially reserve for inventory applications, inventory projects. If there is not enough demand, there is not enough inventory project application to use up all the reserve, then some of that money can be used to fund other types of projects, namely find and replace and replacements. If there is more demand in a funding round than the money we have available, we have the flexibility to perhaps go over what we have initially estimated for a project. And so we can exceed that initial allocation of $17 million. Important, you can submit more than one application per funding round, but you cannot submit 2 or more applications in some funding round for the same type of project. So you can submit one for inventory and one for find and replace, one for inventory, one for find and replace, one for replace, any combination thereof, but not 2 applications at the same time. Same type in the same funding round. You can do, if you do that, one of them will not be considered, will be reconsidered on the next round. Yes.
Includes if they are physically separate, north side of town, south side of town. Even if they're both, even if they're added together, they're below the funding threshold. There may be reasons to do that.
Yes. Even if it below the funding record altogether, yes. What we look is the 2 project area are part of the same public water system. So
Fair.
County District A, County District B, 2 different public water systems, 2 different things. But the same city or town, north side, south side, same PWS ID. No. Okay, our priority rating system is based on project purposes, project benefits. we don't apply the system management priority points to these applications. And number 4, affordability. This is a quick summary. The points are given for project purpose, 20 points to replacement project, 15 points to final replace project, 10 points to inventory owner. We do apply the system, the roll down system, so that if your documentation does not satisfy the requirements for a higher purpose, we will consider a lower purpose. We have seen it and done it different rounds. Project benefits, we only have one type of category, whether there is a documented exceedance of the action level for lead. Now, depending on whether the project directly addresses that exceedance or doesn't, typically the project aims at removing the lead service line at that location of that exceedance, or just inventorying it, doing additional investigation, but not replacing it. You can get fewer points, either 5 or 2. And affordability, this table is virtually identical to the ones that you see routinely for drinking water and wastewater SRF projects. We use a different application form. We have a common application form that we share with the Emerging Contaminants Study Grants Program. Okay, so do not use the common application for drinking water, wastewater, and what other project use the common applications? CDBG, even if it's brown, there's no. So please download from our division website the application that you recognize LSLR rolling application, because we have several funding rounds per year. So if you miss one, immediately thereafter there's another. Okay? And that's all I have. Any more questions? Well, if they're not about GRR. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, David. This is the last section. So if you are new to our program and you don't know, what happens after your project is submitted to us, we review, score, the SWIA awards, all that happens, and then what happens next, when do you get your money? So this is when that we discuss, what happens if your project successfully receives funding from us and you got that information, probably listening to SWIA, they think, okay, this project is awarded. In our website, it is there. But it takes a few weeks for us to send out the letter of intent to fund to all those successful applicants. So last, I think the February SWIA meeting, we are still working on our letter of intent to fund to go out. So probably by next week, they should go out for the last round. So this is what happens. So once you get that letter of intent to fund, the project will be placed on a milestone date kind of a thing. So it's you have so many months to prepare an engineering report or a planning document, and then we have several months to review, send you the comments, do the environmental review if it's an FSRF project, and then approve an engineering report. And then you have months 10 through 15 where the consultant will do the design, and then they will submit to us, and then we will also review at the same time. The permit people review the project, and then this is the time when everything, all permits, easement, everything is getting obtained, and ideally by the end of 19th month, you should be ready to go bidding and execute construction contract. By the end of 24 months or 2 years, you should be in construction. That's how this whole system is. We will put you on a deadline. We will put ourselves on a deadline, and then the project will move forward. In 2 years, we are in construction, and based on the construction schedule, we can finish it in whatever time, 2 years, 4 years, whatever it takes for the contract to finish. So our system, the way our funding works, we, even if we give you, like we say, okay, this project receives what, $15 million, we will not write you a check in before, right? We will have to see all the invoices. So the cost has to be already occurred to get the reimbursement. So you have to get the cost already happened, and then you will send us the invoices, and then we will give you the money. So that's how it works. For the SRF projects, there is another step for the local government commission review. So that is like where you review how much loan that particular unit can take, like whether this, if our award is like 25 million loan, the local government commission LGC will see whether that particular local government unit can take that much of a debt for next 20 years. So that review must happen before we can give you any money on the project. And we can only take project to review after the bids are in hand these days. So the LGC needs to know exactly how much money will be required to finish that project. So they are, they can approve how much ever needed to execute that contract. So that's how it works now. So we also have a 2% loan fee. Even if your project is like 100% principal forgiveness, that will still be required to send in a 2% closing fee before you can get any money for your project. There's 1.5% of the grant that is not applicable this round if your project is funded through SRP, like state grants or VUR grant. Those type of grants, the grant fee is only 1.5%, but this round is only SRF, that is 2%. Yes. Question.
At the bottom where it says SRP, that's what
the disbursement the question is where you put the 1.5% in the disbursement form or not. No, actually the 1.5% you will get an invoice along with your ATA approval. So when you send in your bids to us, we send an authority to award, and then that will come with an invoice of how much money you need to pay. Like it's 1.5% if it is a grant and it's coming from state grants, if 2% if it's coming from SRF. So you will get an invoice of that much money, and then you will pay us based on that invoice. So I don't think you will put anything in the disbursement form. No. Disbursement, okay. Disbursement form is only, I think the sales tax is mainly the big thing there to figure out. And other than that, it's just, we will not put any cost in there. Add everything, like, you do engineering separate, you do construction, whatever legal, admin, and based on the bid tab. So the whole thing would be based on how your bid form is in the contract. So, and if you need help on that, you can call one of the grant management unit representatives. I can give you some names, so they will be able to kind of walk you through on the disbursement process. Yes, we are not, covering the disbursement here. See, and also we can only fund approved costs only. So that means when we review your plans and specification document, we will list in the approval letter, we will list what is eligible to receive funding from that project. And we will also list what is ineligible. If there is something in that plans and specification document that we see that is not being funded or ineligible to receive SRF funds, that will be listed, and we will not be able to reimburse you for that cost, and local funds have to cover for whatever ineligible items in that. There is also a first payment checklist items before we can give you any funds. There will be a funding offer. The funding offer goes signed by the Drinking Division of Water Infrastructure. Our director will sign that funding offer, and then you will execute it. The local government units of authorized representative will sign that, and we will have an accompanying resolution with it. So once we receive all those documents, the first item is checked off, the funding offer accepted, and the resolution, the second one is accepted. And the notice to proceed is when the construction happens. and the sales tax form, ATA that I talked about. All these things are needed before that first payment goes out. So it will take some time for you all to get that first payment. This is wrong. Wage rate certification for construction project more than 10 million, that is wrong. That's an ARPA carryover. So only for ARPA projects, it is that applies. For SRF projects, all SRF projects needs wage rate certifications. Again, once you get your first payment checklist done and your first payment is out, the rest of the payments up to the final payment is easy because you will just get the cost and then invoices send to us and we will give you reimbursement or disbursement based on how do you do it. But when you reach a final payment, that's when we have to make sure some more items are done before we issue your last payment. So closer checklist have some items that throughout the life of the project, your project manager or the project inspector will be there, will inspect your project occasionally, like every 3 months, every 2 months, based on the schedule. So they will have like a final checklist done, certifying that everything is done according to the plans and specification. And we also need like an honor certification of completion, engineer certification, and the final change order and the final inspection to complete the final payment checklist. So there are several conditions that comes along with SRF or the federal funds. Those conditions and assurances, you will get it like beforehand when you get your offer. So if you get your offer package, you can just read, like I think it's about 2 or 3 pages in there that lists everything, that all the assurances and conditions. And the main thing we check during the contract is the Davis-Bacon, that wage rate, American Iron and Steel, and BABA for selected equivalency projects. So if your project is selected to comply with BABA during letter of intent to fund, you will have that written in your letter of intent to fund. We pick and choose projects that's based on the dollar amount and ease of completing BABA requirements. We pick a couple of projects and then say, okay, your project needs to be a BABA compliant, so that you will know beforehand before you get into any other design work. There's some more BABA. I don't know if I need to go through all of it, because most of the projects will not be subject to, since we are doing this equivalency based thing. But whatever the lead service line projects is coming from the CAP grants now directly. So all of the lead service line projects, except the inventory projects, will be subject to BABA. All of the emerging endowment projects will be subject to BABA because this came from the IIJA bill. So there is no way we can get out of it. But the base SRF, whatever we are getting every year as a CAP grant, that amount of money is subject to BABA. But the money that, since it's an SRF, right, state revolving fund program, we generate more money through payments coming back to us. So that revolving money doesn't need to be BABA. So that's a little bit of a help here. We can, smaller projects, we can pick and select and say, you don't need to do BABA. So BABA is like, I heard people sitting there, it is AIS on steroids or something like that, like AIS plus a bunch of things, like the manufactured products and construction materials. So that is the expansion of AIS. There is some waivers, the approved waivers. There is this general applicability waivers. And then there is this small project waiver. So small project waiver is agreement less than 250,000. I don't think we have ever, can't remember in my 15 years, we made like a loan offer for 250,000 or less. So usually our funding is will not be subject to this general applicability waiver. We have done a lot of, actually recently, last 2 years, we have done a lot of planning waivers because most of our project who got funding from, these rounds have already been started planning like way before that bill or IJA implementation date of May 14, 2022. So we could apply this waiver to some of our projects so far. But then I'm afraid like going forward, we will not be able to do that planning design waiver because it does not apply to projects that got funded after December 2023. But if your project has already received funding like before December 2023 and was not subject to BABA at that time, and you're coming back to add more money, then there is the possibility that we can make that waiver continue through because that project has already been on design on whatever path it is, and it will be too difficult to go back and implement BABA for the previously awarded project. So that is how we're going to treat this. This is a new thing. If you have been coming to us with projects, we have been very generous with giving you extensions for your milestone dates. We have projects, I don't know, from 2017 still going on. So, but EPA is really coming down on us saying they cannot hold on to our money or we cannot hold on to our, these funds for more than certain years. So they came up with this memo requiring all states to spend the money as soon as possible. So that will make our program a little bit more restrictive and we have to be more proactive in letting you know that you cannot, delay the project more than that, certain time. So this, please, be aware that if you are coming to us with the project, have a clear idea that this project will, go through. If not, when you get the letter of intent to fund, you will have 30 days to decline. You can say, no, I'm not ready now, and then move on. So we don't want people to kind of put money in that's sort of screwing up. We have money sitting in the bank or in our account or EPA's account. It's already been committed, so we cannot use and give it to some other project. It's already sitting there. It's creating a lot of issue. People are noticing that you have money sitting in there. It just we don't want to do that, right? So all the projects should move forward on a tight schedule that has already been fixed. Again, this is the slide that you have already seen before. How much money we have. So about 167 million for drinking water and wastewater project construction. And here for the lead service line and PFAS study project, we have about 25 million. And one thing I need to tell you is stormwater LASI funding is not available this round, but Clean Water SRF, through Clean Water SRF, there is one project type where if you can, if you do stormwater quality control measures, that you can still get some Clean Water SRF money to do your stormwater project. That's the only type of stormwater funding that you have right now. We do not have LASI. That's it. Any questions? Yes. Yes.
So for a drinking water, one, we applied for additional rounds, like apply for funding of rounds, and then also is recommending spend or would it?
I would say put your funding requested as how much you need to be, not the cap. We will automatically apply that cap. And then if you haven't given you the full amount, the next round, we will automatically consider you and give you another, if it's a wastewater project, 35 million. And then after that, even with that 70 million now, if you're still short, you have to put in another application. So that's how it works.
As the prosecutor is either violent or not expired. It's similar amounts of money.
The question is what is our perspective on competition and amount of money available. So it's before ARPA. right? Everything was like very calm and quiet. We were actually meeting in drinking water. We were actually funding most of the projects that's coming in, and the total priority points that we were funding was like in 20 to 30 range. Like right now, it is like 60 and 50 cutoff. And ARPA made everything very, very competitive. And then once ARPA went back, like, in the last 2 rounds, there was no ARPA. So still our application kind of total money requested still remain high. So we can only, like, in our last round, we only funded about 15 to 20% of the total demand. So that is how it is, that last round. But this round, the money again, like, reduced. We do not have like a certain funding sources like BUR, SRP, CDBG. So this is also like kind of making the money available less. So based on how much application we get this round, that's again, like this is it, like 10 to 20% is max that we can fund at this point. So it's getting very high. Any more questions? All right, thank you, Jen. Thank you. Jen, we'll wrap it up.
I will wrap it up. So y'all should have in your email boxes, those of you online as well as those of y'all in the room, a link to a survey. If you can take just 5 minutes to fill it out, it would really help us out. Because we will be doing this again late July, early August for our fall round. And we do look at these and want to provide the best training possible for y'all. So appreciate you filling out the survey. Any other questions overall before we wrap up? Okay, Susan, is there anything online? No, okay. Thank you for sticking with us. It is a beautiful day out there. Go out and have some time out in the sun so we can all get adjusted to daylight saving time. And thank you. If you have any questions, do please call us, email us. We find that those of y'all who come to the training, ask questions and even meet with us, put in really good applications. So we want to give you the best opportunity possible to do that. And we are always open. Our door is always open. Again, if you're new to this process and you're not comfortable submitting via the Laserfiche, shoot me an email. We'll set the time and I'll walk you through it. Don't mind doing that at all. And everyone have a great afternoon and I will see you down the road. Thanks.